Have a good class.
See you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Kathy.
All right, everyone. Looks like you guys are, well, you're early, you're fired up. I love it. I think we're going to have a fun discussion this morning. So, but before I get into our topics, I know a lot of you are excited about these category management tools, and I've sent you 3 to date. I want to go over, because this is being recorded, so this serves as a bit of an instructions on how to use these and what to do in case your work computer blocks them. Okay. So let's go over the first tool called the categorizer by keyword. Okay. As you know, one of the cornerstones of category management is the ability to categorize spend. And it's for those of you that try this, it is a lot easier said than done. So the tool makes categorization somewhat easier because it allows you to take gigantic list of PO descriptions, and it can be anything. It doesn't even have to be formatted properly. As long as you can put it into a single column and paste it on this tool will very quickly try to categorize as much as it can. And as long as you keep developing your your taxonomy keywords, you can get this up to 100% if you want to. It's just a matter of developing this. So I will go slowly through the instructions, how to use this, okay? So first of all, enable macros when you open file. So macros are enabled on my computer. I'm using a personal computer, but if you're using a work computer, when you open this for the first time, you might get a yellow message right where the formula bar is, where my mouse is right now. I'll say enable content. Click that before you touch anything in the Excel file. Click enable content, okay? Now, if you click enable content and there's no more messages after that, you're good. That means this tool is ready to use, and all the other tools I will be you. By the way, this category management and strategic sourcing tool, I will be sending you out tons of tools. I sent you 3 so far. There will be more with strategic sourcing, and when we talk about the next 2 weeks, there's be even more tools I'll be sending you. So this is really important. Make sure macros work on your computer. Now, if you click that enable content button, the yellow button, and you get a red notification afterwards, it says like your administrator or something has blocked macros, or this is an unsecure file, so macros have been disabled by default. Here's step 1 of how to get around it, okay? What's happening is that the computer recognizes that the Excel file is not from you. In other words, you didn't build this. So this is important on a work computer. So any file that you receive externally, like from me, your company might consider it automatically hostile, or it's like it's got a virus or something, which is, of course, not. I built this. There's no virus in here. So it will disable macros even if you hit the enable content button. So you have to trick your computer into thinking that you made this file. This came from your work computer. So how you do that is you go to File, all right, and then you save a copy, all right, and then change the file extension. Instead of .xlsm, change it to .xlsb, Excel Binary Workbook. Okay, the Excel Binary Workbook is a macro supported file, so it's like .xlsm. In fact, saving file as .xlsb will even decrease the file size, which is nice. It becomes more portable. So save it as that. Okay, you can change the name or whatever, keep the same name, but you have to save it .xlsb. And then once it's saved, close the file. Okay. Next, reopen that .xlsb file, and then resave it as a .xlsm. So you save it again, a second time, but this time save it back to .xlsm. Once you do that, the computer will see, oh, this file was created and saved on this computer, therefore it's safe, okay? You save it again as .xlsm, okay? And then you close the file one last time. When you reopen it, macros should be enabled, okay? Now, in the extreme case that your IT department is so paranoid that technique doesn't work, okay, and I've seen it work in some computers, the most paranoid of all IT policies, you have to go to your trust center. So that's go to File, Options, okay, and then go to the Trust Center, okay, and if this Trust Center settings is not grayed out, okay, click it, all right. And then you can go to macro settings and then you just click on enable VBA macros. All right. If your trust setting button is grayed out, you have no choice. You have to talk to IT and tell them, I need this macro file to work. Okay, this is not a virus Excel file. I need it for work, and they ungrade for you. Okay. All right. So I hope you got that. I don't have that written down, so just watch the recording, or if write it down if you want. Okay. Remember, you're saving and resaving. Change the format to .xlsb. Close. Open it. Change the format to .xlsm. Close. Reopen it, and that should be okay. There we go. Thank you, Len, for summarizing it for me. .xlsb first, and then .xlsm. Okay. And that works for any macro file, not just mine. So if, let's say, a coworker sends you something with a macro and it doesn't work on your PC, do this trick. It shouldn't get it. Okay, now on to the categorizer. Okay, so first of all, go through the instructions. There are two important tabs to remember: the taxonomy keywords tab and the categorizer tab. Okay, this file only has three tabs: instructions, the taxonomy keywords, and the categorizer. So in your taxonomy keywords, you can modify this table to fit your own taxonomy. The file is not protected, okay? So you can change the content of the table. Ensure that every row in the table contains a category subcategory. Okay, so what does that look like? There. If you look at the leftmost columns of this red table, you have category and subcategory. Do not leave holes in it, like having a category but without a subcategory, you might break the program, or having keywords, forgetting to put both category and subcategory. Okay, they need to exist. All right. So what you could do is maybe fill out your categories and subcategories even if you don't have keywords yet. Just fill out the table. Okay, there cannot be blanks in your category and subcategory rows. And if you need more rows, feel free to right-click and insert rows. That will not destroy this table. Okay. The thing you cannot do is insert columns. Okay, and do I have that in the instructions? Yeah, there we go. You may insert and delete rows, go ahead, but do not insert or delete columns. Very important, or you destroy it. Okay. So I skipped steps. Write keywords in the keyword column that pertain to each category. Okay. So for example, this row over here, let me zoom in. It says equipment, machinery, and MRO, and then the category compressor and vacuum pumps. Write down keywords here, and don't take the word keywords literally. It can actually be a phrase, like in this case, cylinder, comma, pneumatic. That's fine. Okay. This one is chain roller governor, chain roller camshaft, or you put single words. But my tip for you is, if you want this to work very well, the problem with single words is sometimes it will appear in other things, right? Like, for example, if you just put the word bolt, all right? A bolt is a keyword for bolts, but it also might be a keyword. It might exist in bolt repair, right, or something like that. So it's better to be more specific. Enter larger, text over here, like phrases or something. Or if your keyword is so unique, it'll never appear anywhere else. Do it that way. Right, and it doesn't have to be complete. There can be holes, but when there are holes, like in case for, let's say, gloves, I have no keywords here. That means in my categorizer there will be nothing here categorized for glove because I don't have keywords. Okay, so this takes time. All right, and I would invite your SMEs to help you with this, but give it a first pass. Okay, put some keywords, and then when you do the categorizer, okay, you can start using it. Let's read the instructions for categorizer. Number 1. Ensure that the columns for category and subcategory are clear. All right, so delete any data from here. So always run this on a clean sheet. Don't if this has already been populated, don't hit the categorize again. I mean, you could, but you're gonna get confused. So you always start with the category and subcategory columns blank. Okay, just file right click, delete them. Next, replace data in the column named data with your own. So right now, this is just an example. Over here, I have, what is this? 10,000 rows. It's quite large. Okay, you can replace it with whatever size of data you want. Okay. Audio cutting out for everyone, or just
Fine.
for? It's fine. Okay,
Yeah.
because it might be because of the recording function. It was for
Just
me.
a tiny. a tiny bit here and there, but
it's kind of spotty.
Huh. That's odd. Okay. It's a bit choppy, but still clear. It, honestly, because the one recording this session it's not me, it's Kathy. And for some, the audio is perfect. Okay, all right. So it might be computer based. All right. So next, step 3. Do not delete or rename the column headers. Okay, you might be tempted to call this something other than data, category, and subcategory. Do not. Okay, keep the headers as is. Okay, and then you click the categorize button to start the categorization process. And then for any lines where there is no categorization, you can click the find uncategorized button so that they'll be filtered. And then now we will have a list of anything that wasn't categorized. Now you can find keywords for them. Okay, so let's try it. So I have my data over here. Yeah, I am happy with my taxonomy keywords. I click on categorize. Okay, then the macro will run. All right, at 10,000 rows, it takes about 4 to 5 seconds. Just blazingly fast compared to if you tried to do a lookup or something. All right, 8 seconds only because we're streaming. When I'm not streaming on Teams, this is about 4 to 5 seconds. Okay, when I press OK, all right, you will see everything that it's successfully categorized. So housing, bearing, thrust, that is equipment MRO, pumps. Okay, and true enough, the thrust bearing is a part for a pump. Okay, so it will do that for the entire data range. And it'll even be a report that for this list, 52.4% of them was categorized. So a little more than half were categorized. So how do I make this more accurate? You click on the second button here called Find Uncategorized. So if I click that, there we go. These are everything that wasn't categorized. So what you do is take something like, okay, this one that says packing bundle. Okay, maybe I'll take the words packing bundle. Okay, and I'll put the keyword here for that. So yeah, packing. Okay, I don't have anything packing, so I'll just paste it there. Packing bundle will now go under packing in gaskets materials. Okay. So if I go back to categorizer, I can clear my filters, clear filters. Okay. And then I can categorize again. All right. So hit categorize. It's redoing the process, but this time packing bundle will be categorized, show up anymore as uncategorized. So we wait for that 8 seconds. There we go, 983 seconds this time. Okay, and then find uncategorized. We'll see, oh, it's still there. Packing bundle. I think it's because I did not follow the instructions where I have to do this on a clean sheet. So let me just clean all this first. I did say that this has to be clean first, so. Yeah, it's a huge file. Okay.
So select. Ian, how do you clean that? Do you just clear contents?
Yeah, I'm just hitting delete on my keyboard.
Okay,
or you can right click and delete. It's the same thing. So no, actually not this delete because I don't want to delete the column or the row. I just want to, you can use clear here. Clear contents. That works. Okay, and then let me just double check my packing bundle. Packing bundles here, equipment, machinery, MRO. Well, just to be clear, I'll just make this packing. Okay. Yeah, it should work. Okay, categorizer. Sorry, Steve.
I'm sorry. I noticed that some of the descriptions had a colon after the word packing, and then the word bundle, and some didn't have that colon in place. So there could be a search kind of.
Could be that the colon was messed it up. All right, so I remove the colon so that when it finds packing, with or without the colon, it'll work. If I put colon over here, then this thing will work only if a colon does exist. So I'm just going to try to be general here and not put any colon. Okay, and I guess let me just double check that packing didn't exist anywhere else. So it will find and replace packing. Oh no, that's case packing. That's something completely different. Packing ring set, ring packing, packing set, packing. Okay, yeah, so this should work because we have packing over here. So categorizer and categorize. Okay. There we go. Now it's 53.4% categorized. There was a change. So if I find uncategorized, there, packing doesn't exist anymore because it was categorized. I can even find it. I clear filters and look for the subcategory for packing. We should see it now. There, packing gasket. There they are. And there was our previously uncategorized packing bottle. It's now categorized as packing oil C gasket. So clear filters. So that's how this tool works, all right? Instructions are very important. Macro-enabled files are notoriously finicky. You just insert a row and a column in the wrong place and you'll destroy the whole thing. So make sure you understand the instructions very clearly. Do not, and most importantly, do not insert any column here in the keyword table, and the categorizer, do not change the headers. And of course, do not insert columns, okay? You can insert rows, that's fine, but not columns, all right? Any questions on the categorizer? You can start using it today if you want, now that you've seen the instructions. So far, good? Categorizer, and no questions? Is clear as crystal? Okay.
Ian, it's Tammy here. Just one quick question.
Yes.
So when you went to find packing,
yeah,
like I added it into the categorizer or the taxonomy keywords, and then I went to the categorizer and did the categorize. When you went to search it, were you just a Control F find?
Search the word packing or search it search the uncategorized stuff?
Search the word packing.
Oh, I just did Control F like this. Control F packing.
Okay.
Because I want to make sure that in my taxonomy keywords, the packing doesn't exist somewhere else, because then I'd have a duplicate, right?
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And that will very realistically happen to some of you. You put like a keyword pipe over here, where the subcategory should be pipe fittings, but you'll see that why does it keep going to let's say compression oil? It's because somewhere here was also the word pipe. So every now and then I do the Control F to make sure that my keywords are in the right place and there's no duplicate.
I hadn't cleared my filters, so my apologies and thank you for that.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, on purpose, I did not put filters here. You can if you want to, but you might forget that, you know, there are filters, and then you'll say, why is my table so small? So by default, I remove the filters, but there's no real issue if you put filters. And just make sure that if you do want to filter things like you're auditing your keywords or something, make sure you unfilter it before you run the macro. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you want to know the keyboard shortcut for that, I just click anything in the header here and then do Control-Shift-L. That will put filter on the entire table all the way to keyword 100. Okay, so yeah, a little trick there. Control-Shift-L, and then doing it again will remove the filters. Control-Shift-L. Okay, that's the categorizer. I hope you guys have fun. Then it's to those that I've given this to in the past, they've actually used this as the basis for their initial category taxonomy. They've actually built taxonomy thanks to this tool. So you can do this. Now I'll show you the next one. This one is, again, the most important tool in category management theory: segmentation and tiering. Now, let's get this tool right. A lot of things can go wrong over here. Okay, this one doesn't have an instructions. Okay, it's actually one of my oldest tools, but arguably my most important one. So read what the instructions I put here, which is number 1, all columns must be filled in order to calculate segmentation tiering. So you must have supplier, you must have a total annual spend. It doesn't have to be sorted in any particular way as long as there's no blank. Everything here, every supplier with a spend must have a category. Do not leave this blank. Okay. And actually, that's what that thing is asking for, that these 3 are filled out. Over here, the risk areas, they don't all have to be filled, okay? Especially, for example, let's say you say supplier financial stability or solvency is 0% on my weighting, okay? Which means I have to put that 15% somewhere else. I'll put it over here, okay? Then it's okay if all of these are blank because it's 0 weighting anyway. Okay? But if anything has a weighting, all right, and by default, I just put 15, 15, 15, and then over here I have a 10% on supplier transparency. Okay, make sure everything has a weighting. Okay, and I made it simple. It's just a ranking of 1 to 3, but decimals are allowed. Okay, so let's say the drop down of 1, 1.52, 2.53 is not granular enough to you. You let's say choose 1.5. And then you can modify to, let's say, 1.55. That's okay. Decimals are allowed, okay? But you know what? If you have enough risk areas, like you're evaluating 7 out of 7 or 5 out of 7, even without the decimals, you'll see it will be split apart quite nicely already, because there's a math that takes an aggregate of all these numbers. So even if you just use whole numbers, 1, 2, and 3, this will still work. All right. It goes without saying that when you put weights over here, they have to add to 100%. Please, okay? Don't have to explain that. You can't have something here where sum is not 100%. Okay. You can also change the words here. All right. If these 7 risk areas are right for you, go ahead and change them. Okay. The tool does not care about the words, you know, criticality to operations or unique technology. All it cares about are the scores. So you can change these things. All right. And when you're doing this in a group, and ideally you should do this in a group, always refer to this risk definitions tab. Okay, because this is the rubric. This guides you to let's say when you're evaluating unique technology. When do I give them a 1 and when do I give them a 3? Here are the things to consider. Okay, and here's a question you ask. Does the supplier provide unique solutions, capabilities that cannot be obtained through other suppliers? Okay, and then here are your guiding questions. This will make sure that when you do segmentation, you are as objective as possible. Because in my experience, there is always a human tendency to try to overestimate the importance of suppliers, because some people, you know, naturally will say, I manage these vendors. I don't want to make anyone think that they're not important, so I'm just going to inflate my risk. Do not do that. Okay? It's not about how important you think your suppliers are. It's how important they are to the company. If they really are low risk because they're just a dime a dozen and you can replace these guys with substitute, do not put them high on criticality to operations, because yes, they may be supplying you with something very important for your operations, but if I can change the product with someone else's, then it's not that critical, right? So be as objective as you can. I cannot stress this enough. Very, very often people regress and they say that they secretly want to make their suppliers the most important one. They try to force it to become strategic. Please don't avoid that mentality. Okay. All right. The other tabs here: risk definition, segmentation, strategies, levers, and the purchasing chessboard. They're just for reference. They actually don't do anything, but it shows your team that when you're done with segmentation, here are the 4 boxes. Here are the strategies, and it clearly shows them only one of them says you have to negotiate with these guys. The other strategies are the opposite of negotiation. You find replacements for them. You automate their relationship with them, right? You manage a spend, but you don't manage the relationship. Or this one, you do collaboration rather than aggressive negotiation. So when they see this, they realize, oh, this is no longer purchasing. This is not the traditional SCA anymore. This is different. And true enough. Imagine that only 1 out of the 4 boxes is negotiation and commercial engineering. Everything else is something else. And then here are the levers you pull, and then the things I've talked about this and it's recorded on the video. Okay, now here, there's a tab here called segmentation and tiering chart. This is not a requirement, because as you're entering data on the first tab, you will already get, if you scroll to the very right, you will already see their segmentation and tiering. You'll see right away tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, who's strategic, surety of supply, transactional, tactical. But if you want a graphical representation, because I don't know, you want to put this on PowerPoint maybe, or you show your boss when he does not understand what segmentation is, you can use this. But here is this is where the tool could break when you're using this one. So number 1, let's read the important stuff here. If the total number of suppliers or subcategories, okay, I wrote that because some people some people think that They don't want to segment their suppliers. They want to segment their subcategories. That's okay too. I have reservations against that. So when you do that, you will have a result saying some subcategories are not as important as others. And that could send the wrong message. I think all subcategories are important. The suppliers within each subcategory, some of them are not important. That's why I always encourage you do this on the supplier level, not subcategory, or worse, don't do it in the category level. That's just wrong. Okay. Back chart. Okay. If the number of suppliers change, you have to hit refresh plot. That button down here, refresh plot. Okay, because this is a simple Excel file. As you're adding more data here, the chart will change, and then all the colors will go out of whack. Okay, you'll have more points, and the colors will be wrong. So hitting refresh plot sort of like tells Excel, okay, do it all over again, and then give me the right colors and the right plots. So do that. Okay. Next, what are these settings over here? Okay. This is so you can customize the split line. So you can say that my minimum spend either the minimum of the group, and that's automatically calculated. It says over here that supplier 12, their spends 106,000, or you can make it the absolute minimum, which is 0. I recommend use the minimum in the group because for all you know, you're in your minimum supplier, your minimum spend is like say $1 million or something, which is a big number. All right, then you'll get very distorted if you make your absolute minimum 0, even if your minimum spend with that group is $1 million. So leave it in minimum in group. Okay, the maximum in group. All right, the maximum spend can either be maximum in the group, all right, or a custom number. Okay, here is where you want to use some critical thinking. If you have a supplier whose spend is unusually high compared to everyone else. In other words, he's a statistical outlier, okay? Like supplier 1, instead of $9 million, I'll make him $90 million, okay? If you do that, yeah, this is what happens. You'll see your supplier, your $90 million supplier in the chart, and everyone else seems to be bunched on the left side because their spend are so small compared to him. If that's the case, okay, then you can make your maximum spend. Instead of the maximum of the group, there you see that $99 million supplier. You click custom, and then you can change it. Right? I'll just make this, let's say, $8 million. There, and then it fixes it. It fixes itself because now your maximum is 8 and not that $90 million. So that's when you use the custom over here. When you know you have some suppliers that are unusually high. What's going to happen is they're still on the chart. They're just not plotted where you can see it. They're plotted way on the right side and you can't see it. But that's okay because you'll still have their segmentation over here. They won't lose their segmentation tiering. They just won't show up on the chart. Okay. Right, let me just restore that data again. Okay, putting this back to 9 million, not 19 million. So in segmentation, I'll just put back to maximum in group. Okay. In the midpoint, I don't know why you'd want to touch this, but just in case, let's say there are some suppliers right at the border and you say that supplier 11 over here, I don't want to consider him as strategic. I want him to be in surety of supply. You can change the midpoint so that the midpoint right now, it's the arithmetic mean, the average 7.4. I can force that to be a little higher. I can make it $8 million. There, just so that supplier 11 goes to the left of it, and then hit refresh plot. It will redo this and okay, you know what? Okay, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. Okay, when the nature of VBA is when you're running VBA, it doesn't like if there are other Excel files or even PowerPoint presentations open. And right now I've got everything open. I've got 4 Excel files open and I've got a PowerPoint background. So that's why it crashed. See, I hit refresh. It says it doesn't work. When that happens, the file is broken. So you have to open it again. Okay. So tip, before you hit refresh plot, save the file first. Okay. And then make sure you close all your other Excel files. So, and all macros are like that. Macros tend to crash if there are other Excel files open because it takes the full resources of your computer, and these Excel files, they compete with CPU time. So yeah, you saw that. Now it doesn't want to work because I've got other Excel files. but this does work. I tested all of this last week, this morning. They all work. All the buttons here work. Just make sure you don't have other Excel files open. So I'm going to close this right now. Okay, any questions on the segmentation tool? I hope that was clear enough. And oh yeah, I also demoed the FT calculator. Let's bring that up because you saw that and you might want to know how it works. This one's a lot easier. It's not even a macro-enabled file. Okay, it's just a simple calculator I built. So the way you do this is enter, like it said, the number of suppliers in the subcategory that you manage. All right. What constitutes one FTE? So you estimate how many working hours, and if you want this to work properly, make sure that you consider that people go on vacation, there are holidays, so people do not really work, 8 to 9 hours, 5 days a week. That doesn't happen. So that's why this isn't 2,000 something. It's only 1,700. Okay, and then you say how many FTEs. Now, if there are people in your team who are, let's say, half an FTE, because maybe he's the manager and the manager splits his time 50% on managing people and only 50% managing contracts and suppliers. It's okay to put, decimal places here, right? So that's what FTE means. It does not mean literal people, literal bodies. It's like it's about people's time. Okay. So the math here will automatically calculate how many hours your team can work on managing suppliers, and then you have to say that each sourcing event will be an approximate number of months. Just make an average or something, because this is just a simple calculator. And then how many sourcing initiatives you estimate this year, okay? And then it'll calculate that out of 6,800 hours your team has on doing supply chain work, after the sourcing activities, okay, you only have 3,900 hours left, okay? And then you also have to manage suppliers. Okay, you're not just going to market and bidding. Sometimes you're just actively managing agreement. You're doing your scorecards with them, or you're just checking if the contract's still working, people are using their outline agreement, whatever. Just estimate how many days a year do you think you'll be managing suppliers. Okay, so sometimes that's an easy calculation. Like I will do this 2 hours every Friday or something. Just how many is that, in days in a year? And then the final calculation is how many suppliers your team can manage. Okay, so this is a great tool for, justifying to leadership. Like if you feel that you guys are burned out or that there's just too little people and too many suppliers, this one will show objectively why that's happening. All right, so that's FTE calculator. This will work on your computers because this is not a macro file. It's just a simple Excel model. Okay, that's the FTE calculator. Okay, closes that. All right, so now I can get on with the slides if nobody has any questions. The topic for today is we are pivoting now to strategic sourcing. We're going to get back to category management next week because, as I explained the last time, I mistakenly thought that this was a 2-day course, so I took out a lot of topics in both category management and strategic sourcing just so that they could fit 2 days. But now that you're right, I do have 4 days. Next we'll go back to category management, and I'm going to discuss the topics that I took out, and some of them are really good. Like how do you create a value creation standard? Right? What is the true definitions of cost reductions, cost avoidances? What are the areas of efficiency? That sort of thing. We'll talk about that next week, and even things like what are the skills and knowledge required for category management, the people, like and things that they're not necessarily exist in traditional procurement, but that you're going to category management, you have to learn certain skills. Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. But today, here's our topics: the rationale behind strategic sourcing, types of contracts, and two case studies where we do strategic commercial contract. I will talk about A.T. Kearney's 7 steps of strategic sourcing with a very nice tool that comes with it, and I will demo. And then initiative prioritization, which comes with 2 tools. So there will be 3 tools that I will demo today. All these things. Okay, let me just turn off my camera. I didn't know it on the whole time for bandwidth. There we go. All right. Let me just, there's that. I need my control panel. I can click next here. Okay. The rationale behind strategic sourcing, okay, is born out of the realization that more value can be created from sources other than price. Just like I explained last week, that when you shift from traditional supply chain management to a strategic one, it's no longer about commercial rates. You're thinking now about other things. Okay, so long-term studies conducted on supply chain organizations across North America showed that traditional methods of negotiation and focusing solely on price yield at most 10% average savings. Okay, in layman's terms, that's as much as you're going to get if you just try to negotiate. Yes, every now and then you'll get big savings, like, well, I'm going to get 55% savings because I was such a great negotiator. But on average, when you look at all the other contracts that you're managing, it works out to be only around 10%. That's a North America-wide study. But an extra 30% in value creation came from other sources like long-term contracting, collaborative supplier relationship management, and mutual business development. Think the Kraljic matrix, our segmentation and tiering. Those are the strategies, actually, if you recall. Collaborative, supplier relationship management, mutual business development. Notice that 30%, it's not in cost reduction or savings. That's the old way of thinking. It's actually a term called value creation, okay, which is more than just saving. Real value, it truly affects the bottom line, but it's more than just savings. Okay, so let's compare and contrast. All right, so in the areas of focus of objectives, knowledge and skills, and the potential for automation, okay, here's the difference between tactical or traditional operational sourcing and strategic sourcing. So the objective in your traditional procurement ops is keep the lights on, to just make sure everything's running. That's all, at whatever cost. But strategic sourcing, it is keeping the business viable for years to come. You're not thinking about tomorrow. You're thinking about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? The objective, another objective for operational sourcing is simply the timely creation of purchase orders. How fast can you convert requisitions into POs, right? But with strategic sourcing, it's different. The objective is the execution of long-term strategies through targeted negotiations. Okay, so I like to think of this as the summaries of the row above. It's all about efficiency for traditional procurement, and it's about value creation for strategic sourcing. Okay, so with the people in operational operational sourcing, it's about just mastering the transactional process, right? And mastering your SAP or Oracle system, so speed and accuracy. Whereas in strategic sourcing, it's about planning, strategic thinking, research, collaboration. It's a completely different skill set. Can you automate operational sourcing? Yeah, it can be partially or fully automated. And I created these slides almost 8 years ago. Since then, I've seen people, entire functions in operation sourcing decimated. They were replaced by AI and RPA, or robotic process automation, because it doesn't really take much to automate the transformation of purchase requisition to an order, right? Especially as things get more digital, we're moving away from paper contracts and we're getting rates into online contracts with our ERPs. You don't really need people anymore to do that. A machine can say, this is the requirement, this is when it's needed, all right? And then there's a strategy that says, these are the suppliers I need to buy from. It'll just get the PO for you, and it'll do that in seconds. So yeah, it can be partially or fully automated. Whereas when you're in strategic sourcing, it's more art than science, actually. And at least for now, it isn't that smart yet. I will say that it cannot be automated. I'm teaching a class now at SAIT, and they're all taking the SMT program. And a question many of them ask is, okay, when we graduate from this program, what kind of jobs should we get? I told them that, to get your feet wet and to understand the business, you can find any, a buyer position, or get inside traditional procurement ops, okay? Because there's lots of them, but don't stay there. I told them that from what I've seen. All right, there's a high risk of those roles disappearing, or at least being so small that you might not last very long. So learn what it is to be a supply chain professional in the buying organization. But if you can, get yourself out of there and move into strategic sourcing, because that one has longevity. All right. Okay, so discussion point. All right, and you may unmute your microphones if you like. It's nice when we discuss these things. Question number 1. When was the last time negotiated? Okay, don't answer that. You know that. But here, was driving down the price your main objective, or did you have other goals in mind? Maybe as a show of hands, okay? Raise your hand if the last time you negotiated, it was all a price. Okay, I saw 2 hands raised. Yep, 3, 4. All right. Okay, let's see the view all. Yeah, that's all right. That's I'd say a quarter of you were thinking only of price, and the truth, that's what most negotiations tend to look like. It's just price. Now, how many of you had other goals, other motive, other objectives other than price? So raise your hand now. More. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, there we go. More than half of you were not only thinking about price. So what a progressive team you are. You're clearly you have one step in the door with strategic sourcing already, because it's not just about rates and discounts. Perfect. Okay. So what kind of preparation, for everyone who said yes, it's not about price for us, what kind of preparations did you do to reach these goals? Okay, can I hear from 1 or 2 of you?
Some analysis.
Analysis for sure, yeah.
I've actually made a negotiation plan in the past where we looked at the gap between both parties and had a plan about where to go there.
Oh, so win-win. You want both to win because there's gaps, so you're looking at both sides.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, win-win. Okay, what else? What other preparations have you done to try to win on more than just price?
Lead time.
I looked at
Go ahead, Izumi.
Oh, okay. I looked at issues we were having within the purchasing side of things in terms of process, and defined what we required from the supplier to improve those processes and make our transactional purchasers more efficient.
Okay, so you were talking some of requirements that needed to be fulfilled, even at the cost price, I'm assuming.
Well, yes, it could have.
Yeah.
It depends on the supplier, right? For some, if they are engaged in any inefficiencies, they might see an opportunity to actually improve things on their side as well. In other cases, if they're very firm on the way they do business, regardless of efficiency and efficiency of their customers, then it kind of doesn't matter, right? It requires, it's a more difficult negotiation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Donna, you said something also a while. What was that?
Well, we've seen lots of issues with lead times for projects at this point. So we looked at suppliers and reached out to them for both, right? Pricing and follow-up, and made sure that we had all their internal orders as soon as we produce a purchase order for them. Just because if we leave it to them, then we were falling behind.
Yeah, so you were thinking also, aside from the commercial agreement, you were considering very heavily the business requirements, these lead times, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so keep that in mind, because there will be a topic, not today, but on another Saturday, where we're all going to practice actually planning the negotiation. Okay, based on what your supplier appears in the crowd matrix. Okay, but for now, let's talk about the types of contracts. So now we're going to talk commercial stuff. Okay. All right. So this I don't need to really drive down because you all know what a contract is, an agreement between two entities and individuals, and that there are different types of contracts. Here are the most popular ones. Okay. By the way, when I say contracts here, this is we'll constrain it to commercial contracts. So you have something known as cost plus or cost reimbursable contracts. Okay, and within that there are variants of it. You have a cost plus fixed fee type of contract. It could cost plus fixed percentage fee, or not very common, a cost plus incentive fee, or it's known as a performance-based fee kind of cost reimbursable model. All right. Then you have another kind of contract called time and material contracts. Sometimes some people call them unit cost contracts. And then you have lump sum contracts. Okay, let's define them clearly before I show you how to look at these with a strategic lens. So with cost plus or cost reimbursable contracts, the buyer or the client reimburses the seller or the contractor for all the costs incurred during the project. These costs include direct expenses such as labor, materials, and equipment, as well as indirect costs like overhead and administration. Additionally, the contractor receives a predetermined fee profit margin on top of their reimbursed costs. Okay, so in a real cost plus or cost reimbursable, it is on top of, you know, the reimbursable stuff, the direct and the indirects. There is a profit fee or margin. And if you follow the traditional definition of a cost plus and cost reimbursable, there is no guaranteed maximum price in the type of contract. So the total project cost depends directly on all the expenses accrued by the contractor while delivering the scope of work. Okay, so that's I know maybe you think that there are more, it's more to it than that, but here's the traditional definition of cost reimbursable. Some people modify a little bit and they still call it cost reimbursable, but this is the traditional definition. Now, what's the difference between that and time and material, or unit costs? So a T&M contract is preferred when the exact scope or duration of a construction project or whatever project is difficult to pinpoint at the outset. Okay, scope is unclear. Instead of establishing a fixed price or lump sum for an entire project, the contractor specifies hourly rates for employees and subcontractors, identifies job materials to be used, and this next one doesn't exist in cost reimbursable. Jobs can be grouped into a set of tasks, each with a predetermined cost. That's where the unit cost term comes from, right? So a scope can be actually a mix of smaller jobs, and each job is packaged at a cost, all right? And there is a markup, usually typically 15 to 35%, to account for profit for these jobs or rates or and materials. Okay, so it's built into the expenses accrued. It's not billed separately, unlike cost reimbursable. There's separate profit and what did I say there? Yeah, fee or profit margin. Okay, this one it's T&M. It's baked into the rates. Okay, and if any aspect of the project changes, the cost is already predetermined. A T&M contract, like cost reimbursable, may include a not to exceed clause, setting a ceiling for the maximum labor hours or overall project cost. There's a little bit more control when you're doing T&M. Okay, billing occurs at agreed intervals, monthly or a predetermined stages of work, rather than as lump sums at the end. And the key advantages of T&M include the flexibility for both the contractor and the client. So contractors can bill for added labors and materials at negotiated rates. Client can see exactly what they're paying for. And T&M contracts use markup fees, whereas cost reimbursable contracts involve separate fees for profit on top of reimbursed costs. Okay, and the third type, lump sum. A lump sum contract defines a fixed price for completing a specific project. Under this contract, a contractor agrees to complete the project for a determined amount with no adjustments based on actuals. The project owner provides explicit specifications for the work, including plans, design, and schedules. Contractor then estimates costs for material, labor, tools, and indirect expenses like overhead and profit margin. And then based on the estimate, the contractor provides a fixed quote for the entire project, one big number that to be paid at the end. Payment usually occurs, I said, in it can be on an installment basis tied to project milestones or regular increments, but it's still on a fixed number. It doesn't change. Okay, so lump sum contracts are inflexible, and any change requires a change order or a document approved by both parties, and usually is very expensive to change because a lot of work has gone into the estimation for that lump sum number. So if the scope suddenly changes, you can't expect the contractor to give you the same discounts maybe or economies of scale because it's changed, right? You changed the relationship when you change the scope. But there are advantages to using lump sum. Predictability. So the owners receive a reliable price. So that's great. That works great for your budgeting cycle. Reliable revenue because the contractors know exactly what the revenue will be before they even start to work. And this is more of a requirement for lump sum, but a clear scope. Predetermined scope of work minimizes ambiguity. All right. So we know these contract types. All of you have seen them before. Some of you have probably engineered a lot of them in your time. But how do we look at them from a strategic lens? Like, when do we use each one? Or are we like these traditional organizations where we try to put everything to lump sum because lump sum is easy? And I've had so many of those experiences where the business, they need something. They don't want to spend time into working out a detailed scope of work, and they're just blinded by the ease of doing lump contracts. And because it's easy to put that out to market, the evaluation of the bid is easy. You just go with the lowest, usually the lowest bidder, and it's stress-free lump sum. But when you look at it on this lens, right, there are very, real cases where you should not do lump sum, even though everyone in management wants it. Okay, it's really about the distribution of risk. Okay, so remember, in this case, you're the supplier, all right, and sorry, you're the buyer, and your vendors, there's the suppliers. So lump sum, all right, is low risk to you. Okay, if and only if you have the requirements in place, which is a clear scope of work. All right. And as you go higher up here, so lump sum is the lowest risk to you, highest risk for the vendor. Okay. If you do unit cost or material, it's medium risk for you. If you do cost plus fixed or incentive fee, okay, that's getting a higher risk for you, a buyer. And the highest risk of all for you is cost plus a percentage fee. I will explain what that looks like mathematically, a percentage fee, okay? And for the supplier, it's the opposite. Lump sum is the highest risk for them because if they extend their hours, if they spend more labor on a certain job, they eat the risk because it's lump sum. They can't charge for any extras, okay? And of course, it's what the supplier always wants is cost plus percentage fee because that's where they usually, they make a lot of money with that, of course, and it's low risk to them, right? So inaccuracies in your estimations, their estimation, it doesn't matter, they'll get paid anyway, all right? Okay, so now that you're cognizant of this, the distribution of risk is how you smartly use each of these contracts. Let's look at it over here. When to use, and then the pros and cons. Okay, so cost reimbursable, cost plus. You only use this, all right, and the scope of work is not clear, or it cannot be clear because there truly is no way of fleshing out a detailed scope of work. Then that's when you use cost reimbursable. Or if you're in a hurry, short bid time, you really need to get it done in 3 months, even though you know it may potentially take longer than that. In shortened time, it's more like you have no choice but to use cost reimbursable. Okay. Also use cost reimbursable when the buyer is ready for additional oversight and administration to ensure that only permissible costs are paid and the contract is exercising adequate overall cost controls. So what that means is when you take on a cost reimbursable kind of agreement with a supplier, There's work on you to make sure that they are charging properly. Okay. And when long-term quality is the highest priority, not cost or not schedule, it's the quality. Okay, that's when you use reimbursable. The pros of using cost reimbursable, it's you've got greater flexibility in developing design between the parties. The relationship is less adversarial because you want to change things, that's okay, they get paid. And it's a lot easier to terminate. At any point in the relationship, if things go sour, they've already got their money, you've already paid them, and a typical contract allows for that. A cost reimbursable contract allows for when we don't want to use you anymore, yeah, you're done, right? The cons, okay, is buyer takes more risk. As I've shown you in that diagram over here, the cost reimbursable is very high risk for you, the company, okay? Not because it's susceptible to change and you pay for every change, but more because there's a lot of due diligence you have to put, okay, the extra hours. The supplier has less incentive to minimize costs, okay? So innovation might not happen, right? Finding more efficient ways of executing the contract might not happen because it's more advantageous for them to just get paid based on the agreed rates, right? And another reason why this is high risk for the buyer is that you don't know what the final cost will be. So for budgeting, this may do a lot of damage. Okay, time and material unit cost. So when you have a more detailed scope, you can consider using T&M instead of cost plus. You want locked in rates, not just a fee or markup. T&M is for you. Okay, remember jobs can be broken out into small task groups or something. The priority here is there's going to be a balance between long-term quality and cost. It's in the middle, okay? And you've got moderate flexibility in the budget. The pros of T&M is it's easy to audit, okay? Because there's some estimations and plans and fixed rates that the contractor sets out from the beginning. So you don't need to scrutinize every invoice they give you, okay? There's also transparency in costs. The cons of T&M is that it takes a longer time to set it up and operationalize contracts and rates because maybe your system isn't set up to group tasks into certain jobs with fixed rates, right? So it may be something that you have to do in your software, or literally it takes more time to plan this thing out. Okay, so it's not as easy, it's not as quick as a cost reimbursable. And there's more onus on the buyer to make accurate estimates on man hours and other requirements. So still high risk for the company or the buyer. And then you have lump sum, and this is what everybody wants, but sometimes abuses it and then pays through the nose at the end if they don't do it right. You only use lump sum if the scope of work is well defined. Okay, or has been done before and well documented. I would put a stopgap right there. If you don't have this, do not even consider lump sum. Okay, lump sum requires a long bid time because it puts all the risk with the supplier, and the long bid time will come from them. They will be the ones that we need time to estimate this properly because they're asking us a lot here, and we have to make sure that everything is detailed and accounted for because we will be eating up any costs that we don't think of at the beginning if our estimation process is not great. Okay. When to use also is when the buyer prefers a less intensive project management of the supplier, a hands-off approach. Okay. Little flexibility in budget, and when cost is the highest priority, lump sum. You can get an idea now why, at least in Canada, companies love lump sum because everything here is low risk, easy. But oftentimes they forget the first part. The scope has to be well defined. Okay, so the pros of one is it's easy to evaluate, right? You just look at one number. The supplier takes almost all of the risk for inefficiencies. Okay, and that drives better schedule performance. They are incentivized to finish on time or even fast because it doesn't change what they'll get. There's clarity, contractual risk, and project management between parties, and this allows maximum competition in bids. For suppliers falling in the tactical box in the CrowdStrike matrix, this is where we have a lot of competition. This is where lump sum actually works in the tact box, lower right. The cons. It does not easily cater to changes or variations in scopes. In fact, the penalties are the highest for the buyer compared to the other types of contracts when you're using lump sum. Lump sum can be costly to terminate, right? It's the opposite of cost reimbursable. And the prep time to define scope and tender process is lengthier, of course. Okay. Any questions on these three classic types of contracts and when to use them? Okay, no questions. By the way, many of you still have your hands up. I think they just got left up there from when I asked you to raise your hands. So now I don't know who's got a question and who's just raising their hand, but yeah, anyway, at least you know. Okay, some comments here. Haha, lump sum is the most logical for city infrastructure projects, but not easy, that's for sure. You know what I mean, Chris Sampson. All right. Let's see, someone says here, we rarely wind up paying the agreed lump sum. the cost creep upwards. That's Carolyn. Yep, and that's a sign that the scope of work wasn't very clear, and the scope creep costs can be costly indeed. All right, now the next portion is, okay, this is strategic sourcing. So how do we strategically shape our commercial rates? Okay, so I got two case studies. The first one is the difference between fixed percentage fee versus fixed fee. A lot of suppliers will have you believe that they're interchangeable. It's just a matter of preference. But I will show you where one is clearly superior over the other. So here we go. It's another PowerPoint presentation embedded. So I'll have to escape here first and then run this one. This one has complex animation. That's why it's a separate PowerPoint. Okay, here we go. And stop me if anything here is unfamiliar to you, but I'm focused here on labor rates because if you've been in this business long enough, you know it's a lot harder to manage labor contracts versus material contracts. Material contract, easy. It's sticker price, right? You have a menu of prices. You put that in your system or in your labor contract, and it's easy. You buy this, here's the price. But with labor, it's not as easy as there are components to it. And here are the traditional components in Canada for labor costs. Okay, these people, right? These people that you hire, whether directs or indirects, have a base rate. Think of it like your base salary. Okay, it means whatever happens, they're getting that base rate per hour. Okay, and then they have burdens, and you can break that into two: the voluntary burdens and the regulatory burdens. Okay, so your voluntary burdens are your fringe benefits like paid vacation, sick time. Okay, companies put a little bit of that for their own people. And then you have the ones that are non-negotiable, the regulatory burden, okay, your WCB, CPP, EI, and they're usually expressed as a percentage of pay. Okay, and then of course overhead, the indirects that the contractor has to cover, because they have to earn money. There's going to be a fee or profit, same thing. Okay. And then depending on the work, they might have a component for small tools, consumables, ST&C. And then maybe disbursements, right? Field expenses, per diem, flights and accommodations. So take a good look at that. That's typical compensation components. Now here's how, if you don't scrutinize this very well, okay, a supplier could give you the old compensation formula, the one that, yeah, it looks right, okay, it works out on paper, but they will take these burdens, the overheads and the fee multipliers. In other words, they're a percentage of something, okay, a percentage of the base rate, okay. So in other words, the higher the base rate, because maybe the person's more senior, the higher their burdens will be, okay, and overheads and fee. Makes sense, right? There's a new way of doing this, and this totally works in Canada, North America, where the burdens, overheads, and fees, if you negotiate it properly, okay, you can turn them into adders, not multipliers, meaning the burdens, regardless of the base rate, is fixed. Okay, so now the contractor will have to find out what that fixed number is. And it's going to, of course, be a little higher than what the multiplier is, because they have to account also that you have their manpower complement, there's a certain portion of senior people, higher base rates. So you can't just get an average, right? It's usually a weight number. And then they have a fixed overhead and fixed fee, okay, plus your small tools and consumables. These things, these small tools and consumables and disbursements, they're always adders because they only charge what they use. It's not a function of the base rate. Okay, so multipliers versus adders, they both work. They're both completely okay with contractual rates. It's a lot harder for the contractor to come up with this formula, where everything is an adder, not the multiplier. But look what happens, okay? In the old formula, you will have, if you plot out all the rates you get for a job, all right, the line will look like this, okay? Where the higher the base rate, the more from junior to senior labor, all right, the higher the sale rates is. This is what the buyer gets charged. This is what you pay, okay, for. For example, if you look over here, somebody with a base rate of maybe, what is this, $30, the sell rate is 42, whatever, okay, because you've got your burdens and overhead, right? Now, for the same job, the contractor might give you another, formula where they're all adders. And of course, this is what I'm saying. They have to compensate now because they don't make that much money on adders for low rates. Okay, so the sell rates for lower base rates in that new formula where things are adders, they will be higher when compared to the old formula. Okay, and because overhead and fees are adders now, they're constants instead of multipliers, then they will be naturally lower for those with higher rates. So the more senior people, regardless of being senior, the overhead and fee is still the same amount. Okay, it's not a percentage of their base rate. Okay, so and numerically these might be exactly the same. Okay, for a job, that this red line and the blue line, right? When you add it all up, they'll be exactly the same, and that's the contractors will make you believe that doesn't matter. We can make a way so that whether it's adders or multipliers, the cost will be the same to you. Okay, so there will naturally be increased costs for low rates when you're looking at the new formula, and there will be savings for you for the high rates when you use the new formula compared to the old formula. Okay, but again, these two lines are numerically the same. Here's the kicker. What happens when base rates increase? And base rates always increase because of inflation or because unions ask for a higher, a floor, or regulation. The government says now the minimum income, minimum wage rate is this, and it affects all the suppliers. So base rates will increase. This is not something you normally talk about when you're negotiating. You're usually within the bounds of the scope of work. But what happens when base rates increase? I'll show you what happens. So for something with the old formula, okay, look at that animation, okay? You see that? The multipliers will contribute to a steeper slope. That's just how the math works, all right? The effect of an increase in base rates on sell rates is magnified because they're multipliers. So the more senior people, the sell rate for them will rise at a higher rate, at a faster rate than it will be for the junior people. Okay, let me play that animation. Look at the slope of the line when everything's a multiplier. For more senior people, it becomes a lot steeper. But if on the onset you settle for something that's adders instead of multipliers, look what happens when base rates go up. The slope doesn't change. Okay, everything moves up at the same rate. The slope does not change. That's just how math works. Okay, so look what happens in the areas of savings and increases. Oops, sorry. The savings area when rates change is much greater than the increases we're here on the left side. So now that you know this, okay, it's more work, but because you know that base rates always change, sticking with engineering your commercial rates so that the burdens, overheads, and fixed fees, fees or profit are adders instead of multipliers, you will get great saving. This is just creative math, but something that a lot of people overlook because the contractors, they love to make you believe that The formulas are the same to us because we can make them numerically equal, but nobody talks about base rate increases. Any question on this strategic way? This is case one. It's a strategic way of making sure you will still come out on top regardless of increasing base rates. Carolyn's got a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, how do you find suppliers are when you ask about this level of transparency in their proposal?
Can you repeat that? I lost the first 2 seconds of that.
Sorry, I think it's feeding back into your microphone a bit.
Oh, that might be it. Okay, go ahead.
How do you find that the suppliers are accepting when you ask for this level of transparency in their cost calculations?
My experience, yes, because when you have a cost reimbursable or even time and material contract with the supplier, they have to tell you these components because that's how they get paid, right? They have to break it out. Otherwise, you don't just blindly pay them a number for the hourly rate and you don't know what component is overhead and fee. So they'll do it regardless, right? And I've had in my experience no issue with asking them, can you please rewrite your formula so that your base rates, overheads, and profit are adders instead of multipliers. There's many suppliers will think that we normally do that, but you can tell them just make it numerically the same, all right? So and you will see this phenomenon. Let me go back with my animation. When they do that, for the junior people, all right, these components will be higher, okay? Right? That's the only way they can make money because they'll see all that for the senior people, the rates will be lower. Yeah, but they can engineer this to be exactly the same. But take advantage of the fact that you're thinking about increases in base rates, right? And they might not be at that stage of the contract. That's, again, strategic sourcing is always about thinking ahead, 5-10 years in advance. Whereas traditional procurement is just my commercial agreement right now. So this mathematical formula that I'm showing you here, this is strategic sourcing, one of the things you can do in strategic sourcing. But to answer your question, Carol, have I run into resistance? No. The only resistance I get is they say we need more time for this. And I'm okay with that. As long as I plan things ahead and I'm not in a rush, take all the time you need.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't have as much leverage with your suppliers, sometimes they can just say no to this. I've experienced that in the past.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, my experience it's a little bit skewed because I used to work for large companies, and large companies usually have the leverage. In smaller companies, you may not, they may say this is how we do it for all our clients. We're not going to make a special one for you. So yeah, there is that.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's my unconscious bias. I've only had experience with large companies. Any questions again on this creative way of structuring commercial rates, adders instead of multipliers? Okay. Anyway, it's going to be part of the material you get, and it's being recorded, so it's something to consider. Okay. All right. Let me get back to the presentation. Okay, now we'll do the case number 2. All right. So case number 2 is fixed percentage or fixed fee versus incentive fee. All right, not very common, but there is it's high risk, high reward kind of thing. Okay, so let's look first at the fixed fee or fixed percentage fee. Okay, so when you use it if cost control is of high importance rather than continuous improvement of a relationship. Okay, the main purpose of your traditional commercial fixed percentage or fixed fee is to drive the right behaviors in terms of reducing overtime hours. And there are no KPIs for this because you pay as you use, right? That's why incentive fee is a little bit harder to implement, but hopefully in the next slide, you'll see that this is something we should consider. Okay, so when do you use an incentive fee, all right, or performance-based fee rather than a mathematical constant or multiplier, okay? You use incentive fee when the relationship is long enough that you can monitor and see improvements in performance. So no good for a 1-year contract. But if it's a 3 to 5 year kind of contract, you can win big if you use an incentive fee. Okay. If continuous improvement in developing the relationship is more important than cost. So in other words, you may want to use this on a tactical supplier, but on a supplier that is strategic, or a tactical supplier you want to move into the strategic box. Incentive fee is the way to go. Okay, so in terms of Coralgic matrix, you definitely don't use this thing on surety of supply or transactional, but on the right side of the matrix, strategic or tactical, incentive fee works great for strategic or tactical suppliers you want to become strategic. All right. So essentially, in incentive fee, this third bullet point over here, the supplier is willing to put at risk their fee for the promise of getting more if certain KPIs are met. That's the spirit of this commercial agreement. Okay. So the main purpose of this one is to drive the right behaviors in terms of the KPIs. Okay. Instead of just reducing overtime, it's now, can you meet our KPIs? And where things can get strategic, because you can define your KPI. You can do it collaboratively, but it's now more than just commercial rates. All right. In the end, the commercial contracts with incentive fee tends to push buyers and suppliers into a strategic alliance. So again, it's perfect for that strategic box. Okay, so the KPIs, some KPIs, okay, are cost predictability, schedule predictability, improvement in cost predictability, improvement in schedule predictability, and retention key personnel. Okay, what are these things? All right, so fine, cost predictability, the cost estimate at the beginning of the relationship versus the actual. Okay, so for budgeting purposes, positive or negative deviations are unfavorable. All right. So if cost reduction is something that the company would like the supplier to focus on too, another KPI for cost reduction can be used, but it has to be carefully weighted or modified so as not to adversely affect this KPI. So one option is to change the scale of this KPI by eliminating the penalty for negative deviations. All right. So if you want to just simply give them an incentive for being accurate in their estimate versus actual, then you penalize them if they come lower or they come higher. But if you don't want to penalize them from being lower costs, okay, you can make it so that they get maximum fee at 0 deviation and only penalize them if they go over. So you can modify this, that's the saying. But look at the behavior we're driving here. The onset of an agreement, making sure that they are very careful in their estimates, okay? And that it's almost like trying to drive the lump sum behavior in a cost reimbursable or time and material contract, okay? Pretty creative, huh? What about this one? Schedule predictability, all right? With complex projects wherein multiple suppliers are involved, there is little incentive to finish the engineering phase ahead of schedule. For this scale of KPI is from behind schedule, which is low fee, to on time, high fee. All right, because again, there's why would anybody try to be behind schedule when normally it's being on time is good enough. So in this case, if they are on time or ahead of schedule, they get the maximum fee. But if they are late, that's when they get penalized. Okay. Sorry. How about the improvement in the predictability? So the improvement of these metrics. Okay. So this is a KPI of, let's say, if it's cost predictability, what was your actual versus budget last year, and has there been a change this year? So you're measuring the change. So if there are improvements in predictability for cost and schedule, they get a fee for that, right? Or a portion of that maximum fee. You can structure this that these maximum fee is just a number, right? And everything here is a percentage. Yeah, but over you're measuring the change, not the actual predictability or cost or schedule predictability, right? And that's why this kind of commercial agreement only works if it's a long-term agreement, because you need time to measure the change, right? And I love this KPI, the retention of key personnel. complex long-term projects, changes in key personnel is proportionate to increase in difficulty with dealing with the supplier and potentially erodes any efficiency and relationship gains. Some of you may have seen this where you go into a relationship with a supplier and they say, we're going to give you our A team, our best of the best is going to work on this project. And as the project, goes along, one or two people of the key personnel will drop off, maybe because, they've moved on to other things, or they were redeployed by the contractor to more important projects in their eyes. So you're starting to lose these key people that you're used to dealing with, or these were the people that you met in negotiation. These are trusted people, will see the project through, and they slowly disappear. You can give a certain maximum fee by how much these key personnel, like these key managers, these key foremen, whatever, are still at the end with you in the project, and you erode that fee every time they change their personnel. So maybe you can arbitrarily set that if there's 50% changes in their personnel, we bring down your fee to a certain number. So it's creative. It's totally doable. I've seen it many times already. It takes a little bit of work, but what I love about the incentive fee cost reimbursable or the incentive fee time and material contract is that you're driving different behaviors. You're driving partnership, you're driving collaboration. And in long-term agreements, this is one of the things will get you that extra 30% value creation I said in the beginning, right? Whereas traditional procurement only gets you 10, right? And that's dependent on the skill of your negotiation. But incentive fee, this is where you increase the size of the pie, as some people say. Okay. Tammy says, I totally see the value in the key personnel retention in the project. Oh yeah, especially in long construction projects, you don't want to be talking to different people throughout. You want to have consistency. Consistency means efficiency. It means trust. So tie that to the profit they get, right? That's what this is all about. Any questions before I send you on a quick break, and then we move on to the 7 steps of strategic sourcing? Questions on these strategic way of viewing commercial contracts? Okay, none. Okay, it's 10:27 my watch. Let's meet in 10 minutes. So 10:37, let's come back and we'll talk about the next big topic and my first tool demo. Okay, see you in minutes. 10:37, and I'm back. Okay, can I get a thumbs up from most of you to say for me to continue? All right, okay, let's continue. Next topic, and it's a big one. The 7 steps of strategic sourcing. So the 7 steps of strategic sourcing was developed by A.T. Kearney, I think about 20 years ago. Right? It's a structured process that introduces project management discipline and rigor into the sourcing process. And here are the 7 steps. Category assessment, supply market analysis, sourcing strategy development, supplier identification and selection, conducting your RFX, RFP, RFQ, whatever, shaping and negotiating agreement, and finally, implementation of the agreement and continuous improvement. At the heart of the reason why this was invented, it's because A.T. Kearney recognized that strategic sourcing isn't a one-time event. It's a dynamic cycle that requires adaptability and continuous improvement. And here are the key features of applying the 7 steps, right? It's that you treat a source event or going to market as if it were a project, okay? And projects have defined start and end points. There are key milestones. There's accountability at every step. There are checks and balances built within these 7 steps. There's visibility for everyone involved in the sourcing activity. And finally, some flexibility in scheduling that projects are. And the 7 steps makes you think of sourcing activities that way, rather than we just go out to market, awarded the lowest bidder, and that be that, right? So let's look into detail now what these 7 steps are and what changes have to happen in your organization for this thing to work. By the way, the 7 steps of strategic sourcing was created for virtually all kinds of sourcing events, okay? From complex to simple sourcing, as long as you have to change the way you procure your materials and services, and you need to go to market, right? These 7 steps can be applied to anything, to various degrees of detail. Maybe like more complex projects will require more time for some of the steps, but generally all kinds of sourcing events will go through these 7 steps. Okay, so category assessment, or in other words, the analysis of where you are. All right, so you review and refine your supply position. Okay, so you look at your current and the future business needs and your supply chain department's ability to supply the business. And you could even make proposed strategies for exactly that. How do you make sure the business can keep running? Okay, you validate spend analysis. So review your historic spend and determine if future or potential spend may happen. So a little bit of forecasting if you can. Excuse me. Update your sourcing initiative registry if you have one. Okay, and then from internal sourcing team. Okay, and then develop your cross-functional team. Identify and engage key stakeholders from various departments. Remember last week I said that a hallmark of category management is that you form relationships with finance and operations or maintenance, people who will be using your or reporting on your spend, but normally don't get themselves involved in sourcing activities. With category management, they are now part of it. So for in the 7 steps, in step 1, you form a CFT with these people. And then you have a formal kickoff where you create the draft work plan and schedule kickoff meetings. Okay, so these are just guidelines of what to do in step 1. The spirit of it is to assess what you have today. Okay, because only then can you make a proper sourcing strategy for what it will look like in the future. You have to understand where you are today. So that's why I would say the biggest biggest task in step 1 is this part: validating spend analysis. Okay, if you don't have good data, right, and you can't even do that simple step here, then this is a non-starter. Okay, like I said also last week, good data is the foundation of category management. Step 2, supply market analysis. So now that you have your CFT, you validate your subcategory profile with them. Okay, subcategory profile is essentially what you have, what the business needs, and how you want to make sure that they get what they need. Okay, so there could also be a spend analysis with this time with your CFT. All right, you and now review and refine your TCO, your total cost ownership models to develop initial perspective for the CFT. Not everyone does TCO, but if you can, I highly recommend it, because this is again looking at a contract with more than just sticker price, and when you offboard them, is everything that every contract has what they call a TCO, where you look at everything from the maintenance of something, or that there are costs to upgrade, there are savings for innovation, that sort of thing, like the total cost being in a relationship. Okay, your supply market analysis is also where you identify with your CFT now the key business requirements and risks. The largest step here would be to analyze external market factors. Okay, identify potential suppliers and sourcing routes, and then at the end you put that on paper, you finalize it. That okay, now that we've had our step 1 was all the internal data, you combine that now with the external data. Who's out there? How can we reach them? What kind of sourcing routes appropriate for these new suppliers? That's your final subcategory profile. Okay, 2. Again, you can modify this any way you want, but the spirit of second step is outside your company. The first one is look inside. Second one, look outside. Step 3 is development of your sourcing strategy. How are we going to approach the market? So, you of course assess your adequacy of knowledge to develop strategies, and that's where my previous slides might come into play. Like, are we going to continue with cost reimbursable, or are we mature enough now to go to twin material or even lump sum? Okay, you brainstorm potential sourcing and contracting strategies, evaluate and rank your strategies, and then you develop sourcing recommendation to your CFT. Okay. That also include not doing competitive bidding, and maybe we just do sourcing, right? We do a reverse bid or something. That's step 3 is where that comes into play. Look at all routes and then make a recommendation. If you need more information from your current future suppliers, you can set out an RFI or a expression of interest, only for the purpose of gathering information so that you can make a good sourcing approach. This is not an RFP or RFQ where you're asking commercial rates. You're just asking them information like, are you the right company for the kind of project we're thinking? Or is there a certain technology that you possess that will make you the ideal candidate? Something like that. And then you finalize sourcing strategy. Okay, and then you create an executive summary, usually for approval, because this is in the 7 steps. This is the first time you actually talk to senior management and tell them, I have a plan, I'm going to market, and this is going to require spending. Okay, so this is when I did their checks and balances. Here's the first one. You require approval for your plan. Okay, what is step 4? Step 4 is you had your internal data, you had your external data, you have a plan to go out there. Now you get them qualified. All right, so you select now you shortlist your suppliers and make sure that they have everything you need to for them to participate in a formal bidding exercise or go-to-market exercise. Pre-qualify them. You check their financial health. You see if they meet your company's safety requirements, and you start to develop your request for a proposal or request for a quotation package with selection criteria. Okay, so internally you're building a questionnaire, your weights and your questions, and you're developing your rubrics and how they'll be evaluated. Essentially, you're preparing to go to market. Okay, that's what this supplier identification and selection is. Step 5, you go to market. You conduct your RFX. So it's X because some people use the word proposal, others like to use quotation. As long as the purpose of going out to market is to form an agreement, that's just RFX. Okay, so you issue your RFP or RFQ, whatever, and make sure you get approval for this. Okay, you issue it. All right. You give them a required deadline and method of communication. Do your bid clarifications. You do a supplier review and response. You set the rules around that. And then you receive and then evaluate. Okay, there's so receive and apply first pass disqualification criteria. So most times when you have these questionnaires for your RFPs, there are certain elements there where if they say no or they can't do it, they're automatically disqualified. So do that first, and whatever remains, you distribute to the CFT for evaluation. Okay, and that's critical. Evaluation of an RFP should not be done by supply chain alone. That's why CFT was formed. Okay, and they're part of this eval. And you rank and shortlist them, and then if you need to, you can conduct field trials. Okay, invite them to site and say, okay, here's what it's going to look like. All right, any questions? Would you like more details of the nature of the business? Blah blah blah. That's conducting your RFX. Looks different for a company, but that's essentially step 5. Step 6 is where you shape your agreement. So this is negotiation, in other words. You have your short list, you're negotiating the finer points of your commercial and your technical areas of bid. Okay, that of course starts planning your negotiation, and the Kraljic matrix helps greatly here. You negotiate with all kinds of suppliers in the same way. Certain suppliers require more rigor, others a lot easier, but you plan it here. Okay, and then you conduct negotiations, do it, and then eventually you will need to request for approval for expenditures, or RFA, because you'll eventually choose somebody to have an agreement with, so you get the appropriate approvals from management to spend, an estimated amount of dollars with them. And then, shaping the contract, simply ironing out details. Are we going to use our contract template? Are we going to use the supplier's contract template? You work it out here. And how you do that is your business, but that's step 6, okay? Finally, step 7 is the implementation of that contract, and more importantly, continuous improvement. This is the step that does not exist in traditional procurement. They're turning this project now into a cycle. So you execute it, okay? You calculate how much value you got out of it, all right? Then you kick off a supplier relationship management program. So for the length of the agreement, all right, and this is more needed if the agreement is longer, like take 3 to 5 years, or compared to a 1 year. You say that you have a CFT, and then you communicate to the business. We will be monitoring them on these KPIs. And we have an incentive, blah, blah, blah. These are criteria for extending the contract or for offboarding them should happen. But that's very important. And the work of people in strategic sourcing doesn't end when the contract is signed. They are still an active member. The CFT is an active member in making sure that the contractor performs its duties properly throughout of the agreement. That's what step 7 is for. Okay. Any questions on these 7 steps? Does it sound familiar to you? And maybe who has never done this before? Never heard of these 7 steps. Okay, Trisha's not heard of it. Okay. Yeah, some of you this might be unfamiliar, or maybe from consultants, they might have called it the 8 steps of strategic sourcing, or I've heard from one company, the 9 steps of strategic sourcing. Consultants like to rebrand this and call it their own, but the original one was created by A.T. Kearney, and it's still called 7 steps of strategic sourcing in the SCM world. You can look it up. I was surprised even ChatGPT knows about this. If you ask it to tell you about the 7 steps of strategic sourcing, it tells you exactly this. It's 7 steps in fact. So the next part is, you'll have fun with this one. I'm going to give you a tool for executing the 7 steps. Okay, when my old company set out doing strategic sourcing about 12 years ago, all right, they recognized that it's going to be a big change for people, right? Now they have to think long term now and think more about negotiation. And now there's like 7 steps that they have to go through. It's like more work for people, right? So the only way that they can make adoption rate easier was so that it had to be real. It had to be something people can see, something they can print and post on the wall. So that's what this tool is for. Okay, I created this for Supply Chain Canada, but admittedly, I use this in the companies I've worked with because it's so useful. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay. So this tool is called 7 Steps of Strategic Sourcing Work Plan. All right. Remember that the hallmark of the 7 steps is you treat a sourcing event like a project. Okay. So here's how it works. There are some build instructions I put here. Enable macros. Okay. Give the initiative a name. All right. Make sure you put the initiative number because, ideally you'll be doing multiple of these in a year. And then you make sure that the holidays and vacation is all updated. And then you put your start date. Okay, when you want to do step 1 of the 7 steps, you put it here. Your email for contact, and then you generate the plan. So before I hit that magic button, let's look at what's in here. So, okay, not that. Over here is a template for 7 steps of strategic sourcing. So you'll see the steps in dark over here. Step 1, category assessment. Step 2, supply market analysis, sourcing strategy development. See the 7 steps. And in this tool, they're called modules. Module 1, Module 2, Module 3. And every module has task groups. So that's the initiate the initial steps, validate your spend analysis. And with every task group, there are tasks. So there are 3 levels to this. And this tool allows you to modify this in any way you want. You don't have to use my words, okay? So let's say you want to change these things, right? You click this button called Add, Remove, or Edit Tasks. So this is a macro-enabled, so like the other tools, make sure macros are working. And if you click it, okay, there's a message that says, in this mode, you may add or remove tasks by right-clicking the row header and selecting Insert or Delete. Just add rows to a table, essentially. Be sure to select the appropriate task type for each newly added task. So you see the column D, task type. You have to say if is it a task, is it a task group, or are you creating a brand new module? You want this to be the 8 steps of strategic sourcing. Okay, you define that. Okay, so the task codes in column B, where is that? That's hidden. Okay, but anyway, there's a task codes here. It'll automatically be assigned to each task before leaving the sheet. You'll see that when we do scheduling, configure scheduling. For now, it's hidden, so I'll just continue. Yes. When you click this one, okay, macros are going to run. It's preparing the sheet, and after a few seconds of this flashing like this, the sheet will be unprotected, and then now you can modify it for appropriate in your company. So now you see there are row headers here. I can right click, I can insert row, and then what matters is you define, is it a module, a task group, a task? Is it a deliverable? Is it a review or approval step, or is it a resource? Okay, you can even put resources here. Like, for example, in this develop cross-functional team, you can insert a row here and say that the resource is you, or maybe the subcategory team lead or something. All right, so you can, if you're familiar with MS Project, you can make this feel like MS Project, where you have resources, and then automatically, if something is called a review or approval, it's colored blue. If I change this to task, you'll see. If it's task, it's like this, but if it's a review or approval, it turns blue. So these are the checks and balances. There's one in step 1 over here, at least in this plan, where you get approval for your work plan. This plan, the 7 steps plan. There's an approval for your sourcing strategy. There's an approval for RFX evaluation, peer review or negotiation strategy. Of course, the approval for the RFA. So it's up to you how many approval steps you want. Okay, what matters is when you create or delete steps, make sure that column D is properly identified. You can't have something in here and not tell the program what is it. It's a task group. Okay, for example, again, if I want this to be a task group, there you'll see now I've created a subgroup. Okay, so the formatting takes care of itself. It's the magic of Excel VBA. You can really make this feel like software, bespoke software. If you click on configure scheduling, this is important. Okay, I'll click this now. In this mode, you can edit the duration, even the sequencing of all these tasks. To adjust task sequencing, select from the drop-down list. Selecting from the drop-down list is highly recommended. Continue. Okay, let's click it. Let the tool prepare the sheet. Because remember, this is a project plan. You have to define how long it takes to perform each of these tasks. The output of this will be a highly detailed Gantt chart you can print on large format on your wall. Okay. So here now is the view of our 7 steps, and now you see in column B over here the codes. If you remember the instructions, don't worry about the codes. The program will assign these code numbers on its own. You just care about this stuff. So, for example, this second step over here, the review internally for understanding spend analysis or proposed strategy, etc. It's a task. It takes 1 business day, so that's what duration means, okay? Business day. This tool is smart enough not to schedule anything on weekends and even Canadian stat holidays, right? It will not assign an approval step on Canada Day, something like that. So when it says duration, just how many business days would it typically take you to do that step, okay? And here's the task sequencing. This one will start together or after. So in this case, this will start after 1.1.1. Okay, and that's what the drop down is for. You can select the which code, all right? And if you're not sure, you can just put previous like this. Okay, so what is 1.1.1? 1.1 is the previous task. So you have to work with a project lead to get the subcategory profile strategy. That has to happen first before the second one. That's why it says start after. Okay, some of these things say start with, like for example, determine an estimate of any future potential spend related to the sorting initiative. You can do that together with validating historical spend. One does not have to follow after the other. So in this case, task 1.2.1 will start after 1.1.3, which is this task over here. But determining any future spend can happen together. We start with 1.2.1. And this one takes 10 business days. This will take 5 business days or 1 week. Okay. Now, what's this one over here where we say offset? Okay, offset, by default, they're all 0 because essentially when you're done with one task, you move to the next. But let's say you want to give yourself a buffer, maybe. If you put an offset, let's say in this case, well, the maximum is what? 1 month. Okay, let's say a buffer of 5 days. Okay, that means that any task that's dependent on this one will start only 5 days after it is completed. Which in my mind, if you do this properly, you can leave this all as 0 because you're done with this task, you move to the next. You don't give yourself a holiday in between or a break. Okay, and then you can even set dependencies like this one, this column over here. You can say whether there's dependency or not dependent on. So dependent means, all right, like this second step over here, review internal for review your spend analysis. It's dependent on the previous one, or 1.1.1. That means if 1.1.1 is delayed, this one is also delayed because you cannot perform this until this is finished. So some steps are not dependency, or have no dependency. Like for example, this one, conduct your kickoff meeting with your CFT. You can do it anytime. It takes some day to do that. And it's not dependent on any of these. Okay, but there are some, like for example, here this approval, the management approval of a work plan, that cannot happen until 1.4.7. selected from the drop down is finished. So 1.4 is the previous task. So you have to receive input from the CFT and finalize your initial work plan. That has to finish first before you can get approval. So said a lot of words there, but essentially this is very important. Set this up, okay? Because these business days duration, the program will create a work plan for you that will tell everyone the CFT. If I plan to start in, let's say, March 1, 2024, this executing the 7 steps means I'll have a contract by November or something. Okay. Here's a little bit of advice also. I do not believe that every 7 step takes the same amount of time. I believe that all sorts of activities should follow 7 steps, but there are such thing as simple sourcing. There is complex sourcing. All right. And this tab only has 7 steps. So here's a hot tip. If you know that your company involves in different kinds of complex in terms of complexity sourcing, you can make multiple copies of this file. So maybe this one file, you call it for simple sourcing. And for these days, maybe when you add it up, it's equal to 3 or 4 months. And then you can make another version of this file where it takes a little longer, or maybe there are more tasks to perform and it takes 1 year to complete. Okay, so you can have multiple copies of this file. Nothing stopping you from doing that. Okay, so that's how you set up this 7 steps. Okay, you essentially make this yours, make it fit how your company is structured and how it works with your organization. Okay, try to keep 7 steps though. It wouldn't be called 7 steps if you cut out an entire thing, right? And you can agree with me also that regardless of how simple or how difficult your source initiative, you have to analyze it first, right? You can't go out there and not know what your spend is, right? You have to, after you're done with your RX, you have to negotiate. Will you not negotiate? That's why these steps are important. Okay, now go back to start page. Okay, it's just preparing things behind the scenes. Every time you click these buttons, a macro is running to make sure you did everything right. If it's an error, it'll tell you that, yeah, you forgot this cell or something. It's making preparation right now. Okay. There, now it's back to the steps. Also, if you click on this one, add holidays. Okay, this is important because you don't want to schedule any major activity on a holiday, and definitely by weekends are already off limits here. So it's quite an old tool, so you see 2017 here, but I think this table goes all the way to, there you go, it even goes to 2024, this year. So yeah, here this is the actual, so Family Day was last week, remember? February 19. So the next holiday is Mother's Day, there's Victoria Day, Father's Day, and then you can put comments of if it's not observed in Ontario, whatever. All right, and if you don't want the holidays, just don't put it here, okay? And then if your CFT has certain vacation or PTOs, put it here. Just say the date, right? Anything gray, by the way, is auto-calculated. So let's say I put the date of, let's say, July 15. Okay, that's a Monday. Okay, that's a Ian dental appointment. I don't know, whatever. The more information you put on this vacation and PTO registry, the less changes you'll have in your 7 steps plan, because you've already taken vacation into consideration. Okay, so do this to the best of your ability. Okay. All right, so enough of the setting up. Let's actually create something. Okay, so you just hit start. So generate 7 steps plan. Click this. It'll say, caution, this action will override the existing plan. Continue? Yes, continue. Okay, macros to run, and I'm going to get a project plan. Okay, just give it a few seconds. To my knowledge, there is no tool like this in the market. There's nothing you can buy on the internet that does this 7 steps. There's a lot of resources on what 7 steps are, but this is the only tool I know that creates a project plan for the 7 steps. I've been told many times I should start selling this thing, but I said, nah. It's part of this course anyway, which I get paid for. So it's one of these things that make my course a little bit more attractive. Besides, it's an Excel file with certain knowledge. Anyone can build something like this if they're sufficiently good enough with VBA programming. Okay, there we go. There we go. Plan generated. You can edit the plan anytime by clicking the following 3 buttons. So, with the way our 7 steps was set up, if I plan to do these things on January 14, 2022, I will finish about October 13, 2022. So you see already the start dates. Actually, you see the start and end dates for everything, for every step. And on the right, it's your Gantt chart. Okay, for the entire step. This is your project plan, and then I'll show you how these buttons work. You can click this less detail. You go for, you'll hide all the tasks. One more, you'll hide all the task groups, and you just see the 7 steps. So you see that. No, okay. You will see that when you start in January, you will be sending out the RFP in May, for example. So, you know, the thing I said about accountability, that's it. You know when they're all going to happen. All right, we will be negotiating by July, and we should be able to have sign off before September 8th. Okay, and then click this detail plus, you get the more details. So these are the subtasks, sorry, the subgroups, the task groups, sorry. And then one more click, you'll see the actual tasks. Okay. So, and then, you know, you print this, right? You either give everyone a copy of this so they see it, or better yet, if I were you, you know, if you have one of those large printers in the office, print this out and then put it on the wall. If you're running 3 sourcing events in parallel in a year, print them out, right? So that you see where you are, you can report on your status. And more importantly, you can prove to management that you are executing 7 steps of strategic sourcing. You're not forgetting anything because it's tangible, it's visible, right? A lot of 7 steps attempts in companies fail because they only get hung up on the concept, but they never really attempt to make it tangible, not something real. That's what this tool is about. Okay, now about the thing of this being flexible. All right, I love this function that I built in. Let's say the plan isn't going to schedule. Isn't going according to plan. You've got delays. All right, so how will that affect the rest of the plan? Okay, so you can edit task group durations. You can edit task durations. You can even edit task start dates. Okay, let's try the last one. Edit task start dates. If I click this button, okay, now you'll see yellow cells. All right, anything yellow means I can edit it. Okay, so for example, this contact TFT members and schedule a kickoff meeting. I don't want it to happen on, let me zoom in, January 28, 2022. This to happen on February 10th, 2022. When I press enter, did you see that? The entire plan recalculates. And it made my February 10 into February 11 because it knows if I accidentally put in a weekend here. So Feb 10, 22 is either a weekend or a holiday. It automatically said, oh, you can't work on that day. So it moved it one day ahead, Feb 11. See, there's intelligence built into this. So now my plan ends on October 27. It's moved out a little bit. So you can use the mode here, task start dates, if things change, you know, or if things are a little smoother. So instead of this being 5 days, I did it in 3 days. How to do that? So edit task durations. So if I click that button, it'll take my existing plan and it'll go into another mode where this now becomes in yellow. So let's look for something that's long over here. Long tasks here, 20 days to the bidding process. Okay, let's see. That will be May 18 to June 15. Let's say I know my suppliers can only do it in 10 days instead of 20 days. Okay, there you go. All the dates have changed. And if I scroll over here, I can't even see where that is, but that's changed. And now even my end date is there, October 30, not October 27. So yeah, you can change the duration of individual things here, like approval. I don't think it'll take 2 weeks to get approval, so maybe 1 day to get approval. Everything adjusts. See, a smart Excel file. And then finally, I can change the duration of an entire task group. Okay, I don't know why you would do this, but you know, for argument's sake, I'll click that button and it happens. Tammy is a project manager. Cool. So you like this stuff then, Tammy. Okay, so this is one of the most complex functions here because, for example, this subtask in step 2, validate or refine category profile, the whole thing takes 20 days, and that's auto-calculated based on the task and dependencies. If I make this 30 days, 30 work days, look what happens to the duration of all the tasks under it. I press enter. There, everything auto adjusts. So now this is all 30 days, and it does that by ratio and proportioning. So the proportions are still the same, but now it's 30 days. Okay. The math it took for me to get that working was incredible, but it's finally worked. So there, I mean, it worked 10 years ago. It's a very old piece of software, but yeah, this thing is smart. So it makes your plan. That's it. And as you go along, when you make your adjustments to dates, and then you can always report on your commitments. And again, this tool is here to both educate you on what these 7 steps are and the realization that everything here is important to truly say that you're doing strategic sourcing. And more importantly, this makes the 7 steps real. This makes it, tangible and visible. Anybody have any questions on this tool? I'll send it out right after this meeting because I have all your emails anyway. Do you like it? Have you? Am I wrong when I said that this is? I think this is the only one in existence. Have you seen someone? You've seen this before?
I have not seen anything like this before, and the fact that you can just put in your main data and it creates your Gantt chart with timelines and you can change everything is absolutely amazing, and I'm really grateful that you're going to share it with us. Okay, cool. That makes me happy that this still has not been imitated. Okay, I get to use that line again. That the Ian 7-step is still the only one in existence. Okay, I think it is. All right, so that's it. Remember, macro file again. You got to make sure macros are working, and for best results, make sure it's the only Excel file open, because macros don't like it when there are other Excel files open. Okay. Question here, not tailored to the 7 steps, but it's a standard Gantt chart, is it? Oh yes. Plan view. Sharing. Yeah, this is a standard Gantt chart. Okay. I mean, there are some Gantt charts that tell you if you're overloaded on a certain week or something. No, this just tells you start and end durations. That's all that it does. And it does track your actual performance. I mean, that's where you change the duration. This shows it's just a plan, really. And when you're in MS Project, you have extra columns for actual. So plan start, plan finish. You also have actual start, actual finish. This is not that complex. It just shows a plan. That's all. Oh yeah, I didn't explain this thing. These numbers are here. These numbers here. These are all Mondays. So in 2022, the Mondays were January 3, 10, 17, 24, 31. There were actually 5 Mondays in January. And February, here are the Mondays. So these are the week of the 6th, week of the 13th, week of the 20th. Just it is in MS Project. Okay, all right. So let me all send you that after our session today. Okay, don't save. If anybody has any questions, just let me know. If you want, yeah, so Melanie wants another email for me to send, no problem. If you want me to send this to an email that I don't have yet, just put it in the chat. So I'm sure I send this out to whoever needs it, even if it's another personal email or something, or a work email if you want. Okay. Last topic. This is a nice one. Initiative prioritization. All right. If anything that you learn from the Kovalchik matrix, segmentation and tiering, is that the reason we have category management is because businesses have matured, the organizations have grown, and now the number of suppliers we manage far outnumber the number of people on the team. Okay, so mature category management organizations, they practice something called initiative prioritization, because they can make a lot of promises in January and says, yeah, we're going to have all these really cool sourcing initiatives this year, without thinking if you can actually do it. All right. When I started this meeting this morning, I showed you that FTE calculator. I have something far more advanced than that. I even tell you which initiatives you should do and which ones you should drop. Okay. In
2 tools. So I'll give you 2 tools. So there are 2 tools that I developed for this course that will help you look at how you prioritize sourcing initiatives. One through impact and ease of implementation, and the other one by FTEs. This is an advanced FTE calculator. So let's go through them. Okay, the first one, impact and ease. Okay. How does this work? Okay, so I forgot to put the instructions tab, but that's okay. We're recording this. So the way it works is you it's a registry over here. You just type in your initiatives, okay? And ideally, these should be sourcing initiatives. So if you have any organizational development initiatives, don't put that here. Just make these sourcing initiatives, okay? And you've got up to 41. So 41 initiatives, which is, if you think about it, nobody can do 41. No one team can do 41 sourcing initiatives in a year. So whatever your plan is, just put it over here. And you put the name of the project leads, okay, or the sourcing leads for accountability, okay? And then you go to, let's say you have 4 initiatives. You go to every initiative has a tab, has a sheet over here. So let's go to initiative 1, all right? It's survey form, all right? So let's read this. It says, the supply chain initiatives ultimately should align with business unit and company-wide priorities. This initiative prioritization tool enables category managers to assess and segment sourcing projects based on the impact to the business objective and the ease of implementation from the business partner's perspective. After completing the evaluation, the projects are all displayed on a graph that plots each against these 2 criteria. I love visualizing things because a lot of people respond better when it's a chart. The resulting graph not only helps the supply chain department to build a portfolio of initiatives, but also provides insights into how to approach each project from a management perspective. Okay, so let's do it for initiative 1. It's very easy. I'll zoom in so you can get better. Okay, so it's a survey form. All right, so the first one, rated 15% over here, strategic alignment. So the project alignment, 3 to 5 core strategic priorities of the business. So essentially the importance to the business of this sourcing event. So I would click this one if the project has no or possibly even negative impact on the strategic sourcing of the strategic priorities of the business, or the extreme end. This project contributes directly to the significant improvement in 2 or more strategic priorities of the business. So I'll just make a random check over here. Criticality of the business. Okay, so essentially just go through the questionnaire. Total spend. And then here's value potential. Current year savings. How much will you save in this year of implementation? Is it 5 to 10%, 10 to 15? Okay. Percent one-offs. So the percentage of spend represented by non-recurring or off-contract spend items. Okay, I got a choice over here. 5-year value potential. Okay, there is little or no value creation, or the value creation is expected to double within 5 years. Okay, yeah, you just make a choice like that. Okay, so all those questions, that's part of the impact to the business units. The next questionnaire is of implementations. Capability enablers, from the capabilities to implement this project have yet to be developed, or I don't have a team yet, or the business has all the systems and capabilities in place to fully implement the project immediately. Okay, let's click that one. Okay, maturity of strategies. You know, do you have your category strategies? Have you done sourcing strategies before? So select that. Maturity implementation. Let's make some checks here. Cost and additional resources. Okay, the project, there's no investment required, or the cost of the project is not budgeted and resources are not identified. Let's click that one for a change. Okay, complexity of the operational scope and the complexity of relationships. I'm just going to make some selections over there. And that's it. It's as simple as that. What was that? Like 20 questions or something. Answer the survey. Okay, I'll do it for one more. So, okay, I'll just randomly click over here. And you can adjust the weights if you want to. Over here, they're just drop-down lists. But these were the ones that, because I read about this in an article from the ISM, the American version of CC, and senior practitioner described this kind of questionnaire, ease of impact and impact of the BU. All I did was take his concepts and I turned it into a survey form with a chart, an automatic chart, so that you can visualize the results. Okay, 2 points. When you're done, you go to the summary. Okay, and then you will see your initiatives map on this chart. So it turns out that my initiative 1 is a collaborative one, and initiative the complex initiative. So here's your axis, your impact to the business and ease of implementation. And the 3 areas are complex, collaborative, and SWAT. Okay, as like literally the SWAT team. These are the quick wins, no value but quick wins. Okay, so let's read the instructions here, or the descriptions. Based on the evaluation conducted on the previous worksheets, these survey forms, okay, the tool will plot the portfolio of projects against 2 criteria: business impact and ease of implementation. Depending on where your project falls, it is considered complex, collaborative, or SWAT from a project management perspective. A complex project is one that is difficult to implement yet has a high business impact. Collaborative projects generally moderately challenging with a medium impact to business. While SWAT project is generally easy to implement but has a low business impact. Okay, so more information below. User tip: for projects that fall in the complex section below, the red zone over here, you may need to work closely with a business partner to expand the meaning of value, to incorporate definitions from key business partners, to increase the likelihood of buy-in for complex, high projects. Okay, so let's read what it says here. Complex, high impact, difficult to implement. So resource distribution, this is me designing a CFD right here. It is ideally 60% supply chain and 40% from the business. Okay, so almost, there's a lot of people from the business who have to be involved in complex initiatives. So the goal is in your portfolio to have 25% of all your projects in complex. If far too many of sourcing initiatives fall here, there's a high likelihood you're not going to achieve some of them. Okay, so too few projects in this segment may signal that procurement is not adequately sourcing long-term business objectives. All right, you have to have some here because complex projects are the ones for the biggest spend and longest term contract. These are your 5 to 10 year kind of contracts, and you have to have some, right? That's what it's saying. Okay, let's look at the opposite, SWAT. SWAT is low to moderate impact, but easy to implement. So this one is mostly supply chain people and only 20% from the BU, or even none at all if it's really that simple. Okay, so the goal of your portfolio is also 25%. You can't have too many in SWAT. So over concentration projects in this segment means that your sourcing proposals are too narrow, distanced from business partners. Because remember, something that's SWAT, they're easy, they have little business impact. So that's what too many dots in SWAT say. It means you're a busy organization, but you're not making the business very happy. You're so low impact to them. You're not really servicing your stakeholders. Right, so you're not meeting their goals, so you can't have too many SWAT. The Goldilocks region is your collaborative. Okay, you want to have at least 50% of all your sourcing initiatives here. So the 70-30 split, 70% supply chain, 30% BU in your CFT. Okay, so majority of your projects should fall in this segment, and the key aim is to move beyond cost reduction to value creation. Like I've been preaching so many times, value creation is the goal. That's what this does. It'll simply plot everything, all the surveys you have here and over here, and then now you can prioritize. Okay, make sure that the mix is good, all right, and then you prioritize accordingly. And lastly, if you want to reset it, just hit the reset button and it'll clear all the surveys and you can start all over again. So very simple to use. It doesn't take into consideration FTEs or the length of time it takes to do this. It's a very simplistic survey, right? But this does tell you, if nothing else, if the priorities of this supply chain organization are in the right place, if you're working on the right things. Again, too many complex means you're overpromising. Okay, and you probably can't finish all that in a year. Too little complex means you're thinking long term enough. You're because if it's too little complex, or in other words, too many SWOT, you're only after the quick, low value stuff. Right, so a healthy chart means the most are here in collaborative. Any questions on this first tool or initiative prioritization? Clear enough? Like it's super straightforward, I think. You have your hand raised. Yes, Lee, go ahead.
Oh, hi, Ian. I really like this template. It's very valuable. Just quick question. Are we able to customize the evaluation criteria?
Yes, you can. None of these are protected. You can type over any of this. What you unfortunately cannot do is add more questions. You can replace anything here, but because of the way the macros work, you cannot add more stuff. Okay, you can change the weightings, you can change the word, but you can't add. You can't even remove any of these. So you're really stuck to having these 3 criteria for importance to the business, and each one must have 5 things. But how you change is up to you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. My suggestion is if you have somebody in supply chain that is pretty good with Excel, they can study this because this is not a protected file. Like nothing here is protected. So you can see all the formulas, you can see the code. The VBA is wide open for anyone to study, right? So if you want too many customizations here, you can always try to build one yourself by studying this one. Because you'll get a copy of it anyway. Okay, last but not least, the more complex initiative prioritization tool. But if you get this right, this is the tool that, in my experience, has justified actual growth of the supply chain department. We used this before to justify that we need to hire externally because our current complement of people was not enough to deliver what we promised. So I will spend a little bit more time because this one's complex, okay, and there's a lot that can go wrong. But I'll go through it one by one, and please ask me questions if you don't understand how this works, okay? So initiative prioritization by FTEs now. What does this do? This is a tool for decision making on what opportunity to prioritize given current FTE constraints. For standardization purposes, the following variables are auto-calculated based on historical data. So the hours per year for each type of opportunity. Got a misspelling there, so remove that. Opportunity type, and the estimated value creation from sourcing and relationship agreement management. That's already they're auto-calculated. Okay. Although the tool calculates an approximation of value creation, the figures are used for initiative ranking purposes only and should not be treated as an actual basis for value creation. In other words, when this thing says that this initiative will save you X amount of dollars, don't take that as gospel. That was just used to rank things. You calculate value creation the way you're supposed to. Okay, you calculate actual savings or avoidances. This tool uses VC and it estimates it, but it's not the real VC. Okay, that's so important. Given current resources, some opportunities may appear below the cutoff line, the point where the organization is at full capacity. This cutoff line is only a recommendation. Okay, because there's no human intuition here. And this tool makes no recommendations regarding resource loading or who does what. That's still up to you. Okay, so first step, assumptions. This will look like that FTE calculator I showed a while ago. So you define 1 FTE will be what capacity, okay? By default, it's 80% because, again, everyone does not really work 8 hours a day. There's some time they're checking Facebook or something, or vacation, right? Or sick days. So don't put this at 100%. Nobody works 100% capacity. Also estimate how 1 FTE is how many working hours a year. Okay, It's actually even more conservative than the other FTE tools. So there's a formula for that up here. You can overwrite it if you want, but anything in yellow you can change. Anything in blue, do not touch. Okay. So it says your FTE formula. So that's approximately 260 work days in the year minus approximately 15 vacation days times 8 hours a day. So that's just text that you can follow to kind of calculate what this is. Okay. All right. Opportunity types. Okay, I have to define what these are. It's actually down here, but it's hard to read. So CSS means complex strategic sourcing. Okay, which means that you do one of these things. It's approximately 600 hours in a year. Okay, you can change this number. Okay, or in other words, 0.38 of an FTE. If let's say that's all that one person does, just one complex sourcing initiative, and that's almost 40% of his time. Okay, then you have strategic sourcing event. Okay, not a complex strategic sourcing event, an SS event, that's 350 hours a year. Okay, SRM means supplier relationship management, 100 hours a year. AM means agreement management. You're just doing the admin work of making sure all your contracts are working in the system, or you're checking if a PO needs to be topped up, or if a contract needs to be renewed. You know, the admin stuff. How many hours a year is that? Okay. OD is organizational development. Maybe you're doing something to train people. I don't know. Essentially, these opportunities types, these things should be the what a person in a category management or strategic sourcing org does all year round. So as you can see, it's not all sourcing. There are some SRM activities, AM activities, and OD. Okay, so whatever it looks like for your team, enter those hours. Okay, and then now describe your team. So in this case, in this hypothetical team, there are two full FTEs. That's going to work. And there's one leader, one manager who is half an FTE. Okay. If he's a kind of a working manager, you can make it 0.75. It's up to you. Okay? Everything in yellow again is editable. All right. And then you put more or less, this is just estimates, value creation. In other words, how much savings or cost avoidances or efficiencies are you going to get? So naturally, complex strategic sourcing and strategic sourcing events should yield the highest savings. Okay, what's the point of doing something if there's zero savings, right? So you put just an estimate. It doesn't matter if it's correct or not. It's only used for ranking. Okay, supplier relationship management will yield 3%. I think it should be higher, but this is just sample. Agreement management 1%, and organizational development 0. Okay, it's not going to give you any savings at all. It's just things that you have to do, like you have to train people, or you have to make sure they are, some compliance checks or something. Things that people still do, but has nothing to do with sourcing. That's OD. Okay. All right. Any questions on assumptions? It's pretty straightforward. Just make your best guesses. Okay. Spend data here. You have to get this right. Okay. So instructions: fill the information completely before moving to the next sheet, the data input sheet. Values do not have to be accurate. The estimates are permitted. Okay, so make sure everything has a category team. Okay, these are open cells. Type whatever you want in here. You put the names of the leaders. Okay, you type in the category. You type in the subcategory. Put an estimated full year spend and an estimated forecasting spend when the initiative is done. Okay. They don't have to be real. Like, they have to be just best guesses, estimates only. So don't spend too much time looking to your historical spend records and saying, so earthworks, how much this subcategory spent, how much last year? Estimates are good enough. Okay. What's important is you completely fill this out. Okay. Do not leave blank rows. Like, if you do this, you'll destroy the tool. Okay. So don't do that. Or something incomplete, like you have a category, but you don't have a subcategory. Do not do that. Follow the instructions, completely filled out. Okay, you can add or delete rows, but you cannot add or delete columns. I should have put that in instruction, but that should be obvious by now. Okay, you can add to this. You cannot mess with the columns, and you certainly cannot change the headers. Do not do that. Don't change this group lead and put here team manager or something. Don't do that. Just leave it as group lead. Okay. Next, your data input. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. This is critically important. Okay. I know it's a hard tool to use, but the benefits of this, you will see. Okay, and you might want to get the last tab. Okay, so it says here, instructions. Grayed out cells are calculated. So do not overwrite. There are formulas in here. Okay, so as you can see, let's say category, there's a formula up here. It's an index match or like a VLOOKUP formula. Don't touch any of that. Okay. So number 1, add more rows as required. Okay, by typing an initiative name at the bottom of column H. Okay? Do not insert new rows any other way. Okay, so in this way, you cannot go right click like this and insert. Don't do it that way. Go to column H, go to the very bottom and type new initiative, and I press enter. There, it will create records for that, and then you see the lines in yellow. That means that that's what it needs right now. So that's the only way to add rows to this. Okay, you type at the bottom of the table. Right? You can delete the stuff when you start using this, but you do not do right-click insert. Don't do that. Okay, next. Duplicate initiative names in column H are not allowed. You can't have 2 initiatives that say earthwork projects. So you can put earthwork project 1, earthwork project 2. You can put the name of the supplier, but you cannot have duplicates. Okay. Next, when assigning activities like CSS, SS, SRM, place them the years where most of the work happens. For example, if an initiative sorting starts in June 2019 and ends in Feb 2020, indicate SS in 2019 because most of the work will happen here. Okay, what do I mean by that? So for an initiative, let's say row 17 over here is Earthworks project. Okay. See, the tool will already put the years out. The reason it puts 2021 over here because in your assumptions you said this year is 2021. Okay, if you change that, I'll do it now. 2024. There. So if I go to my data, now you see 2024 over here. So let's say this initiative, nothing happened last year. Okay, but this year is the start of strategic sourcing, and it will be done in 2024. So that next year we're just doing agreement management. Okay. And it's a simple thing. Well, something more complex. Let's say this initiative is complex strategic sourcing. And next year, we do supplier relationship management on them. And it will go on for 3 years. Okay. So that's what these columns are for. From column J to N, you indicate when you start a kind of event and what are you doing afterwards. All right. Are you doing simple agreement management for that sourcing event, or are you doing full-on SRM? And how long are you going to do SRM? Some will look like this. I start as complex strategic sourcing. The next year I will do SRM, but after that only agreement management. So this looks like just a 3-year contract. Okay. The first year I do supplier relationship. The second year I just manage the agreement. Make sure that you get this right. Okay. Make sure you spend some time indicating the proper activity. Okay, next. Where did I stop? There can only be one sourcing activity per line. Of course. So when you cannot have strategic sourcing and complex strategic sourcing in the same row. It's one or the other. Is it complex or is it just regular strategic sourcing? You can't have both. Okay. Or you can have 2 strategic sourcing events. That's it's not allowed. Okay, if it's 2 strategic sourcing events, that should be 2 initiatives. Okay, here SRM and AM activities can only take place after the sourcing opportunity. Of course, you have to source them first before you do SRM. So that logic has to be followed here. Okay, you can't put AM before the SS. SRM and AM activities for the same initiative cannot happen on the same year. Yeah, that's right. You choose one or the other. They can't be both SRM and AM in one cell. You choose either SRM or AM. The total initiative spend for initiative, the same subcategory must not exceed the subcategory's forecasted spend, which is column H from the spend data tab. So that's what this forecasted spend here is. So what is that? The total initiative spend. Where is that? Here estimated total initiative spend. If you're putting, let's say, earthwork project 130 million, okay, and that is the subcategory for works, that amount, 30 million, cannot exceed the subcategory spend for earthworks. So in this case, the forecast is 100 million. So 30 million is well under this. Okay, cannot put something big. Okay, so and then one more. I don't know why I did not put it in instructions, but you have to say how many years of value creation are going to get. So for example, okay, if a sourcing activity in 2018 yields value creation over the next 3 years, perhaps due to a 3-year fixed price contract, then VC years from sourcing is equal to 3. You use the you type in 3. Example 2, if a sourcing activity in 2020 yields value creation for 1 year, 2021, then the value creation is just 1. Okay, that's why over here when you see CSS, complex strategic sourcing, usually the numbers for value creation are higher because the agreement lasts longer. So make your best estimates for value creation years from sourcing. Okay, and that's all you do for this sheet. I know it's a lot to take in, but for this thing to work, follow the instructions to the letter, or you break the formulas in the macros. Okay. Finally, you get this report. Where's my report? Hold on. Oh yeah, because check the year 2021. It should be 2024. There we go. Okay, so you get a report that tells you that of all the initiatives you put in the list, the #1 priority should be the pipeline project. #2 priority. So they're all ranked already. So this numbering system over here is your priority. And it says that by the time you do project #4, the pipeline project 3, you are at full capacity. Okay. What does that mean? That means you're using, everybody in your team to achieve this. And by that time you can achieve this year, the sum of this, which is $60 million, you can still push it to initiative 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you can still do this, but know that you're stretching your people. There's going to be some overtime with people, and your people are going to get burned out. It says that you can absolutely not do initiative 9. If you want to deliver an initiative 9, you have to hire an extra FTE. This is the important stuff. Okay, and if you hire the extra FTE, you can do up to 9. If you do initiative 10 and 11, you're stretching it again. There's no way you do initiative 12 until you get a second FTE. So this is what management sees. You say that, okay, you want us to source these things. I only realistically do this, maybe up to here, that's stretching it, but I cannot do anything more than that unless I hire more people. That's why this tool is important. And even though I created it for this course, I have used this in my companies, and it has been used successfully as justification for external hiring, because company needs their millions of dollars, and they're not going to get it unless they get an extra person, a contractor maybe, but that's what this tool does. Objectively tells management what is achievable and what is not. And ranking is already automatic here. That's why you see these things on top. It's because they have the greatest estimated value creation. Okay, and doing these things will only yield you just so little money, even if it's complex strategic sourcing. See, so it considers everything: the spend, the estimated value creation, how long you're going to get value creation. There's complex math that goes into making sense of this data sheet and these indicators you put here, but the results you get, this is exactly what managers need to manage a team properly. Initiative prioritization. And then you have a little bit of a report on the left side over here. So it says here, and remember, these are just estimates only. The value creation in 2024 from SRM and AM activities will be $3.3 million. The value creation you get from complex strategic sourcing, SS and OD in 2023 is this, the previous year. Okay, so in 2024, this much. Oh, okay, that is if you, so are you going to prioritize SRM and AM? If it's yes, it makes a different calculation than if you put no. There we go. So if you see that, let's say, for example, you're in a team where the people in strategic sourcing and the people in category management are different from the people who do agreement management and SRM. Maybe you're just a big organization. you see over here that obviously you can do more things, right? See, so you actually get to full capacity at the with much more to initiative number 9. Okay, and you can stretch that all the way to 15 initiatives if you're not prioritizing SRM and AM. But if you are, yes, there, then you can achieve much less. Okay, then here's so 2024 estimated value creation, 2025 estimated value creation, and yeah, only 2 years. Okay, and then total 2024 VC and VC left out. Left out meaning, what is this? Look at the formulas. I think left out means is because it's whatever's beyond full capacity. This is what you're putting out on the table, or something. I forget what it means, but that's what it is. That's the output. This one, fortunately, is not a macro-enabled file. Yeah, there are no macro here. It's just complex Excel formulas. So it will run in all your computers, but it's the most difficult to use, and you have to get the instructions exactly right to get the recommendation in the end. Okay, I've seen a lot of people not do this properly. Like they're entering some information, forgetting to put subcategory or spend, or they put the spend here greater than the subcategory spend, and they get full of errors here, blanks. It will only work if you follow all the instructions properly, including these assumptions. Whew. Okay, any questions? Izumi asked, does changing no to SRM AM change value created? Yes, it does. So if I put no, the value creation changes also, the figures, aside from the prioritization. Sharing as a cool tool to show how project managers determine internal labor resourcing. I mean, it's one of it's. I can't say that this is all that they look at, but this is at least an objective way of asking for more resources. Because I'm sure you've been in those situations where you're wondering why one team gets people, but your team does not, right? It's like, hey, how come seems to be I'm getting the resources for the things they want me to do, but other teams get the resources? Well, that's why this tool exists, so you can justify that if you give me the resources, I can get you this X million dollars. If you don't, then this is all you're gonna get at my team, because there's only 24 hours in a day. It's very objective with these assumptions. Okay. Yeah, Melanie wants to make sure you're on the email list. Okay, good. I got your email. Okay, and that's it for the morning. That's my last thing, strategic sourcing. Next week, we're going to go back into category management. I'm going to talk about the topic I dropped off. So a good one there is the creation of a value creation standard. And the definitions of all the ways you can get value creation and other things like the skills of category management and stuff like that. And on our last Saturday, we'll go back to strategic sourcing, and I will talk about, what did I have it somewhere. Anyway, more topics. Oh yeah, I'm going to teach you how to do RFP evaluation. I remember the last Saturday, the big topic will be negotiation planning based on the Kraljic matrix. So it's category management kind of negotiation planning. And an exercise, which it works well with face-to-face. I don't know how it's going to work online, but we'll give it a try anyway. Okay, any questions? That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this Saturday, and you've learned a lot about the 7 steps and are excited about these SS tools that I will give you all right after this session.
Thanks, Ian. It's great.
You're welcome.
Ian, just a quick
Thank you,
question.
Ian.
Do you know when
Yes.
we will be sending out recordings?
Yeah. Ben, I don't know. Kathy promised that this recording and last week's recording will be about this week.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you can always nudge her if you want her to get faster.
Ian, I just have one question on the when you showed the KPI an hour ago.
Yeah.
So when you say typically, is that like a financial incentive, or how do you calculate that? How do you generally give that incentive?
Okay, so
like we talked about a lot of the different methodologies of KPIs, but typically what are you seeing for what do you give for incentive? Is that a percentage? Is that a non-financial thing, or?
Okay, are you talking about this slide here?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so when I created this, I fully intended this to be supply chain KPIs, not finance. Okay, but it affects the, you know how in a cost reimbursable or time and material, there's that portion for profit, right? The fee. This, by the way, this does not affect lump sum. Okay, obviously, but when that fee part, what I'm saying here is, it's not a fixed number anymore, but it is based on their performance of KPIs. They are still guaranteed a fee. They have to make money. That's why the minimum fee is not zero. The minimum fee could be half of the fee or something, right? And they should be defined in such a way that supply chain can monitor this. So like cost predictability, this is an easy one. At the end of the contract, how much did we actually pay you? And at the start of the contract, how much did we say we were going to pay you? If it's within, let's say, plus or minus 5%, or like it's very close to zero deviation, you get the maximum fee. So how I've made this work before is a contractor would approach me and say, here's the standard profit we have on our cost reimbursable. It's a certain percent, like a 9% profit. What I do, I put on the table, I'll make that 9% 12% if you can meet these certain KPIs, but it will go down to 5% if you don't. So I put his standard fee in the middle, and then I dangle in front of him. You can, I'm willing to pay you more than your 9%, as long as you meet this predictability on cost schedule. That you keep your key personnel, because you promised me I'll get the best. I'll get the A team from you. I want to see them all the way till this contract is finished, and I don't want you changing these key personnel. And I will go beyond your fee if you do it. At the same time, you have to agree that if you fall behind on certain KPIs, I will bring down your fee.
I see.
Usually, the promise of a higher fee makes them say, "Yeah, I like that idea."
Okay, so it's almost like you're giving them a bonus sometimes, and other times they're just not going to make the total amount. They're just going to make a 97% of the total amount that you promised them because they didn't meet certain KPIs. I think that's kind of what you're saying, right?
That's what this is. I mean, the reimbursable part, you don't hit them on that. If you pay them on, you reimburse them on the cost they use. This is supposed to only affect the top up, the fee, the profit part.
Okay, great, thank you.
I remember when I did this on a large EPC contract back in my Suncor days. I was recognized by senior management because I was the first one to create this kind of contract. It wasn't even my idea. Actually, it was a friend of mine who came from the EPC world. He wasn't an employee of Suncor, but he told me that, hey, Ian, you want to know how one of our best contracts look like? He taught me this incentive KPI thing, and I said, wow, I want to try that. When I did it on a large EPC firm, I was recognized by saying, that's how you do, that's how you strategically look at a contract, because I was the first one to incentivize good behaviors, not just cost reduction, right? And true enough, for the construction project we asked them to do for us, they were not late. They were able to deliver on time, and as much as possible, it wasn't 100%, but because we told them we're looking at the key personnel, they did their best to make sure that the people that started with the project, most of them stayed all the way to the end. Others left because of attrition, but yeah. So I know this works. I mean, from personal experience, I've operationalized this, and it was nice. The relationship was good, and we were incentivizing the right behaviors. Mariama says, thank you so much for this insightful presentation. Tools are just what we really need. You're very welcome, Mariama. I know that category management and strategic sourcing requires so much analytics. and the development of some kind of tools. So that this is for. So even if you don't have Excel whizzes, right, or programmers on your team, at least this will kickstart you, get you somewhere. And Carolyn Kosh will want to use the FTE thing. Hey, it worked for me, so I hope it works for you too. Okay, I'll give you all 30 minutes back of your time, and hope you enjoyed this and tune in next week. I'll stick around for a few minutes if you have any questions, but thank you for joining me this Saturday, and I hope you all learned something new.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next Saturday.
Thanks, Ian. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Ian.
Happy weekend, guys.